Good evening, everybody. This is Chris on IMTN Worldwide Radio on Around the ATL. Tonight we have a very special guest, our first interview of 2022. He is on the line, so he's on hold. So we'll be starting pretty soon. And just right now, I'm just checking, make sure everything works.
Minutes until showtime.
You know how that goes. So very excited for tonight. Thanks for all of those who are going to be listening and watching live. Blog Talk Radio if you're listening on the radio, of course, and then of course YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to IMTN Worldwide Radio on YouTube and also the Instagram page. I am going to get out of here for a second, but I'll be right back. So don't go anywhere.
Minute until showtime.
Jordan, how good can you hear that right there?
I hear it pretty well. It sounds a little bit distorted, but I hear it pretty well.
All right.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening, everyone. This is Chris on IMTN Worldwide Radio, and this is Around the ATL. It is April 29th, 2022. 646-652-4479 is the number. Very excited tonight. It has been a long time since we've been able to have a night like tonight where we have a great guest on the line to talk to us about sports and sports in Atlanta in general. So definitely looking forward to this evening. Before I get started, I do want to thank everybody who supports the show, whether it be you watching on YouTube or you're listening on Blog Talk Radio. Definitely shout out to our friends on Facebook, New Pack City, Atlanta Hawks Nation, Atlanta Bird Gang, Dirty Bird Nation, Falcons Nation, Atlanta Braves fan group, as well as everybody that follows us on Twitter. Really appreciate that. As you see, I have my 5-year anniversary shirt from New Pack City from the Originative brand, sponsors of the show. Make sure you hit up the Originative brand on Instagram. You got to make sure you do that. Make sure you let them know that Around the ATL sent you. I'll make sure I go ahead and scroll that on the bottom real quick as y'all get started here. Let's go ahead and bring in our co-host for tonight, Mr. Jordan Jackson. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, sir. Doing well. Just, out and about around the ATL as usual. Today I'm coming from you from the lovely Gwinnett County, a place where some people would say it's not Atlanta, but we love all of our Metro Atlanta listeners. So I'm not going to say anything like that. In fact, I tend to side with Mr. Ludacris in that particular debate.
There you go. There you go.
Shout out to everybody on Hawks Twitter, by the way, Falcons Twitter, Atlanta Sports Twitter in general. A lot of good interaction has been going on in regards to everything that's been happening with the Hawks as well as the NFL draft. So shout out to those guys.
Appreciate it. One more time for the Originative brand as well. Mr. Jamal Price is the owner. If you want anything Atlanta sports centric as far as sports gear, Braves, Falcons, the Atlanta Hawks, obviously, make sure you hit them up and make sure you let them know that we sent you. And of course, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube page, IMTM Worldwide Radio on YouTube and Instagram, as I mentioned, but also follow myself and my co-host Jordan Jackson at Intellect ATL or Jordan23 ATL. That being said, since the beginning of Around the ATL, one of my goals was to have interviews of personalities in Atlanta related to sports, whether it was Angel McCautry from the Atlanta Dream or former head coach of the Dream, Nikki Collins, players like John Collins, Dominique Wilkins, parents of some of our players like Lyria Collins or Anthony Prince, veterans of the broadcast game like Bob Rathman or Steve Holman. I wanted to be able to have an audience listen to what those guests had to say about sports and enjoy the conversation. So tonight we have another opportunity to do just that. 40 years as a sports broadcaster, 15 years as the host of Hawks Live and Braves Live, a virtual professional of the game. He knows what he's talking about and you respect it. All the Atlanta sports fans love him and they always look forward to him telling the story of what today's game had to bring for us. So that's going to welcome in our guest, Mr. Jerome Jurenovich. Jerome, how you doing tonight, sir?
I am doing fantastic. Boy, that's quite a build-up. I hope I don't entertain your listeners there, your viewers. I mean, it is what it is, but I'm happy to spend some time with you. You know, I'm retired now, but anytime somebody wants to talk about the Hawks or the Braves, I am all in. I am all in. You know, I worked at CNN for 15 years, so we had to cover all the teams. Then I went out to LA and Denver, and then I came back for that job you were just talking about. And when you work closely with an organization the way I did with both the Braves and the Hawks, man, they dig down deep into your heart, and that will never leave. Never. I am going to be the biggest Braves and Hawks fan till the day they drop me in the earth.
Yeah, it's ingrained in you, Jerome. And one of the things before we get started that, you know, talking to Bob and talking to Steve, you know, they are fans of the team. They're just not there because, you know, of course, they're getting paid, obviously, right? And they're doing what they love, but they're physically in there. If you ever listen to a Steve Holman broadcast, you know that for a fact. So I definitely appreciate you mentioning that. One thing I do want to kind of throw at you, Jerome, you have some fans on Facebook there that saw that you were going to be on the show, and they know that how you're their fur baby friend. So Bessie Holbrook in Atlanta, I wanted to make sure you got your shout out for tonight.
So that is absolutely fantastic, man. Rescue a dog, baby. It'll be the best experience of your life.
I'm trying to get one from my mom, actually, to tell you the truth. So I'm working on it. So actually, you just mentioned it. How is being retired treating you so far? Of course, it hasn't been a long time just yet, but how's retired life treating you so far?
So far, it's been absolutely fantastic, and I'll be honest with you, I don't miss it one iota. It is great to be able to tune on the game, and if it's, I hate to say it, but if it gets ugly, you know, you just flip over to HBO or whatever, and you know, and it's great. Hey, you missed the first inning, because you're out, whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't want to date myself, but it's nice to take a nap in the afternoon every once in a while. I never did that before in my life, but sometimes you get so bored and you're so active during the day. I'm doing stuff during the day that I would never do because I had to be at the ballpark by 3.
Yeah.
So you don't want to do a lot of yard work. You don't want to be doing X, Y, and Z and all this stuff. Well, now I don't have any excuse. So I'm doing all this. And next thing you know, by 4 o'clock, I'm like, man, I need to sit down for 20 minutes before I start working on dinner.
Yeah, gotta take that chill pill now, boy. I tell you, I used to work at the Affinity Club there at SunTrust. Now it's Truist, and so yeah, I know I had to be at the ballpark at 3:00. So I know those days, and sometimes didn't get home till 2 a.m.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can definitely relate to those days for sure. I mean, I actually do miss it a little bit. I won't lie on that end, but the hours sometimes they can get to you.
Oh yeah.
So
there's no question, opening day, I sat there. I'm like, man, I wanted to be at the ballpark so bad.
Yeah.
Because I was there for 15 straight, and then all of a sudden you're like, that's all right. I'll be at the ballpark plenty this summer though, so I'll get to see the guys in person. I didn't get to as many Hawks games as I would have liked. I got to enough, but there's never really enough.
No, of course not.
No, not at all. Mr.
But,
Jurenovich, this is Jordan here, and definitely just first of all, I want to say it's a pleasure to have you on the show, to get an opportunity to speak with you live and direct. I just a quick follow-up question to Chris's question. Like I'm a dog lover, a pet lover myself. I have a dog who showed up at a former coworker's rental property, and she was going to take him to the pound, and I've had him ever since. A great dog, and also last year, around playoff time, I found a kitten in the middle of a street in the middle of Jonesboro Road. And so he came home with me. Now his name is Burrow because of where I found him. And one of the things I saw when you retired, that you said you wanted to do some volunteer work with the Humane Society. Just wanted to ask, if you had a chance to do any of that yet. And if so, how's that going?
I haven't yet, and the reason why is because when I first retired, they were closed down for the most part visitors because of the COVID rules. And
right.
then I had knee surgery, so I've been hobbling on that. So I'm waiting until that gets back to 100% before I start doing that kind of stuff. But I'm glad that you brought that up because that is definitely on my agenda. That was not smoke and mirrors. And thank you for rescuing both of those animals, by the way. That is awesome. That is absolutely awesome.
That's good stuff there.
I mean, I unfortunately I just lost one of mine about 3 weeks ago, but I'm down to one dog now. I had 4, and they're all rescues, and they're all near and dear to my heart. So once this last one I have, the little baby, she's 15. She's starting to have a myriad of health issues. And once she goes, then I'm going to be back really active. I want to spend as much time as I can with her right now.
Yes, sir. I lost one a couple years back as well. I had 2 dogs, so I definitely know the pain of that, but, unfortunately, though that's a part of it, it's worth it with the joy they bring to you while they're here, sir.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they break your heart at the end, but they're worth it for all the time in between.
Yes, sir.
Jerome, I have a question for you. So the past calendar year, give or take, we have had some tremendous things happen in Atlanta sports. The Braves getting to the World Series and winning it. The Hawks making it to the Eastern Conference Finals last summer. UGA, of course, winning the national championship. Is there a time equivalent-wise that you can remember where a whole bunch of things were happening in the Atlanta sports world to where, like championships and just all the cool things that was happening in Atlanta at the same time?
No, not at the same time. Not at the same time. I first moved in here at the end of 1986, and the Dominique Wilkins Hawks were thriving, but unfortunately, the entire Eastern Conference of the NBA was. Every team was so good. And at that time, the Falcons were so-so, and the Braves were not good. And then, the Braves had that miracle run, starting in 91, but they couldn't get over the hump, even though they got into a couple of World Series, and they just kept winning division after. Obviously, the infamous trade of Neat and the Hawks kind of took a back seat for a while, and they had good success with Steve Smith and company and Dikembe, and then they kind of went down. So, until Vic came along, the Falcons were an afterthought in the NFL, even here in Atlanta. I mean, they were the number 3 team. And every team seemed to have these different peaks and valleys, and none of them really seemed to do anything at the same time. And what I thought was tremendously unfair was Atlanta got this negative stereotype around the country. Oh, they can't win the big one. They can't win. They can't do this. They can't do that. And this past, this past 365 days has put that to rest.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Georgia winning the championship, the Braves winning the World Series, the Hawks. Most people last year predicted the Hawks to lose to the Knicks in the first round. They went all the way to the finals. And I'm not saying they would have beat the Bucks, but if Trey doesn't step on that referee's foot, who knows what
Jerome, we would have beat the Bucks. Come on now.
Yeah, I'll say it, Mr. Jurenovich. You don't have to.
Hey, look, I'm not saying they were better than the Bucks. I'm not saying they were going to beat them. I'm just saying they don't look that bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's face it. Remember when they won 60 games when Bud was here? If
Yes.
Pelosi doesn't suffer that broken leg, that's a completely different team.
It sure is.
That's true.
I'm not saying they would have beat LeBron that year, but they sure as heck wouldn't have got swept in the conference finals. There's just no way that happens. Or they get in there against LeBron. That just doesn't happen. So, they had their share of bad luck, but I think this past year, it was, you go ahead and put that in the rearview mirror and not worry about it. Now, the Hawks this year, I'll be the first to tell you, I was thoroughly disappointed. They still need another player. Remember last year, they were at their best when Herter was coming off the bench, and they still need that missing piece. They still need one big name player in there. I mean, I don't know who it is. I don't know what it is, but they still need one more.
Yeah.
I think that's plainly obvious.
Yeah, you can't get around it anymore. So yeah, we're at that point now. A decision will have to be made, and we'll find out this offseason, I guess. In the meantime, 646-652-4479. Jordan, I know you have another question for Mr. Jurenovich.
Yes, sir. Having worked in your local market, starting out in Erie, Pennsylvania, moving to Denver, Colorado, and then to Los Angeles, what makes Atlanta stand out differently compared to the other markets you worked in? And how has Atlanta changed as a media market since you first started here in Atlanta?
Well, I'm from outside Pittsburgh. I got my start up there in Erie, Pennsylvania. I was actually in New York City for just a summer working behind the scenes as an editor. So I get this on-camera job on the weekends in Erie, and I'm a photographer, editor during the week. And I just came down here on vacation. My best friend from high school had moved down here for a job, and I hadn't seen him since I stood up at his wedding about 8 months earlier. I came down on vacation. Next thing I know, I run into a guy at church, and I used to work with, and he's at CNN. I just stumbled into that job. So I moved here in '86, and I'm here for 15 years, basically. Then I moved to Los Angeles for 4, Denver for 2. I was working with the Nuggets and the Avalanche out there, and that led to this job. And the first 15 versus this past 15, they were totally different. I moved here when Atlanta was just at the start of that massive growth. It was just over 2 million people when I moved here. Now we're pushing like 6? It's crazy.
Yes, sir.
When I came back, Midtown looked completely different with all the high rises and the housing. Buckhead, completely different. It was transformed. I mean, I know the Olympics had a lot to do with that, and I was still here. I didn't move away until 2001. But it was night and day. It was growing as a media market, of course, in the 80s and the 90s, but nothing like it is today. And, look, in the time since I've returned here, we pick up Atlanta United. They end up winning a championship. It is just growth like crazy here. And you've got not one but 2 new stadiums for baseball. And then you're on their second football stadium. That's just crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy when you really think about it. Yeah.
You think 15 years, you're out. 20 years, you're out. And there was really nothing wrong with Turner Field, but both of these stadiums are so much better than the previous ones, and they were better than the ones before that. It's just an amazing city right now. And one thing I've always told everybody, I said, look, even when I moved here in the '86, it was fantastic because you had Delta. It was a hub. Everybody had to come through Atlanta, and Atlanta has always had fantastic restaurants. I don't care where you are in the city. Fantastic restaurants. And I used to tell all my friends when they came here, they always wanted to go to the girly bars, if you know what I mean, because Atlanta was famous for that in the 80s. And I'm like, dude, you're going to love the restaurants in this city. And look, I lived in New York, but I was a young pup. I didn't know any better. I didn't have any money either. But look, Denver's a fantastic city, totally different than Atlanta. But I just love this city. I love what it has to offer. There is almost anything you want to do, you can do here in Atlanta, short of snow skiing.
Yeah.
You know, it offers everything. It offers incredibly affordable housing. It offers just a great airport. It offers great entertainment. The entertainment venues, I don't care what kind of music you like. You can see fantastic acts, go to fantastic bars and venues here. The restaurants are phenomenal. It's just a great city. It has everything going.
Definitely. I've lived in Atlanta for about a decade. And again, I can agree with the growth part of it. And also definitely the restaurant, like literally, if you really wanted to, you would never go to the same restaurant twice. And it would take you a few years for sure to go to all of them, you know? So, you know, and then of course on the entertainment side, like you said, you know, Atlanta has all the culture that you could ever want. And it's international because of the airport. So again, best scenario of all time is, yeah, that's why people keep coming to Atlanta. People keep saying we full, but people still keep coming. They're moving somewhere, obviously. So
it's more than doubled in size since I moved here. It's just absolutely incredible. Now the traffic's horrible, but you got to find something to complain about, right?
Yeah, you know. Jerome, I do have a question, kind of going into you know the early years, I guess you could say to an extent. Was there a particular moment that occurred that steered you in the direction of television and broadcasting and sports all at the same time? Is that something that naturally came to you, or was there a moment that said, you know what, this is something that I know I can do and I want to do it for a long time?
Yes and no. I knew from an early age, even in high school, that I wanted to work in television. I used to watch TV with my folks. You know, they would watch these shows. And when the commercials came on, even as like a 15, 16-year-old, I was always trying to figure out who they were aiming that commercial at. What was their target audience? And when I went to college, I wanted to write and produce commercials. I wanted to get into commercial advertising.
Okay.
On the electronic side. But in that aspect of this business, only the salespeople make any money. The creative people don't make all that really good money. So I looked at it like, whatever, but I got a job as a senior in high school or senior in college, working as a camera operator at the CBS affiliate in Erie. And one weekend they said, hey, do you want to make some overtime this Sunday? I said, sure. What do you need me to do? They said, we need you to grab a camera and go down to the Steelers game. And just, you know, you run camera, we'll send a reporter down with. And I'm a senior in college, and I'm standing in the locker room with Terry Bradshaw and Frank O'Hare.
Oh, wow.
John Stallworth. And I'm looking at these guys like I have idolized these guys for the last 10 years in my life. And I mean, you get paid for this? I would have done it for free. And that moment right there is when I knew I wanted to work in television sports. And I just worked my way into that job. And, you know, Erie had a horrible economy. It was not, you know, the greatest place to live for a young single guy. It's a great place to raise a family. However, it's freezing cold there. But the good part is you can go to the Steelers, the Browns, and the Bills game every Sunday. And in the summertime, you can run over and do the Indians or down to Pittsburgh and do the Pirates. So for a kid right out of college, I was doing high school football on Friday like everybody in America, but on Sundays, I was talking to Bernie Kosar and Terry Bradshaw.
Nice.
It was just an incredible experience for me, and it just opened tremendous doors for me. And then next thing I know, I'm at CNN, and CNN, after 15 years, decides they want to cut back on sports, and Los Angeles called me out of the blue and said, come on out. I've always wanted to live in LA since I was a little kid watching that Rose Bowl. I grew up right on the Pennsylvania-Ohio line, and I hated Ohio State. And every year in the Rose Bowl, they would go out there and lose to USC. And, of course, the USC cheerleaders had those sweaters on, and I was like 10 years old. I'm like, this is the greatest city in the world. I got to get out there. And I was living in L.A., but it was, come on, every young boy my age in the 70s was loving USC. And they were my second favorite team. I loved Penn State, and I hated Ohio State. So They always beat Ohio State. I knew I wanted to live in LA with those palm trees. And it was a great experience, 4 years. Impossible to buy a home out there unless you were a multi-millionaire. But the weather was awesome. The experience was awesome. That led to my job in Denver. And I didn't think I'd ever move back to a city where it snowed that much. And I did. And I was there 2 years. And I'm like, I got to get out. And this job opened up. And I got this job because we were still doing the Thrashers. Everybody applied for the job. Nobody knew anything about hockey. Nobody knew anything about hockey. And I was out there doing the Colorado Avalanche with Joe Sakic, and Rob Blake. These guys are in the Hall of Fame, multiple Stanley Cup winners. And I mean, they were like, okay. Nobody knew the difference between the red line and the blue line. I'm out here with these freaking NHL All-Stars, one of the best teams in hockey. And that's what got me the job. And, man, I'm grateful for that. And then we lose the Thrashers after 2 years, but that's all right. I mean, I wish we still had hockey because I love the sport, but it just opened the opportunity for me to do even more Braves Hoss games. So that was a good thing.
Well, we really appreciate that fact of how those, sometimes you never know where dominoes will, lie at a certain point when they start falling. And I'm glad that they fell all the way here back to Atlanta. And, of course, Hawks Live and Braves Live, where, you've done some great work over the years. And so many people are, again, fans of yours just because of that. Actually, I will go ahead. I'm going to jump ahead real quick. Bobby D. Blasingame says you need to come back to Bally's, just to let you know. I know you're not going to, but he just said you got to come back. So just had to say that.
I appreciate that. That's a nice sentiment. I'm happy sitting at home on the couch watching the games. Jeff Schultz, the esteemed writer, now with the Athletic, longtime AJC writer, when the Hawks and Braves, one played during the day and one played in the evening, and he tweeted out a picture of both arenas. And he said, this is great. I said, it's even better watching on the couch and able to take a nap in between. He just was like, he was giving me grief. He's calling me grandpa. I said, hey, it's a shoe fits. What are you going to do?
Uh-oh.
Hey, I do want to say one thing. I want to tell you guys a quick story. It may not be quick, but I'll try to make it quick. And this is a piece of advice for everybody, not just people that want to work in sports, but for anybody and everybody. Always make sure that you keep in touch with your contacts and never overlook the opportunity to meet somebody. When I worked at CNN, I worked for a man named Bill McPhail. Bill was the very first president of CBS Sports. So he hired all the big names that you could possibly imagine that worked at CBS in the 60s and the 70s. He's the one that hired Pat Summerall. Pat Summerall had no TV experience. And he hired all the big names back in those days. Bill's brother Lee was the president of the Yankees at one time and then president of the American League. He's actually the guy that made the famous pine tar rule against the Yankees. His father, Lee and Bill's father, was Lee Sr. He also was president of the Yankees and president of the American League in their careers. So anyway, when Bill was in charge of CBS, there wasn't a national contract for the NFL at that time, believe it or not. The CBS station showed the New York Giants all over the country. That was unbelievable. So anyway, he becomes good friends with Pete Rozelle. The NFL decides to start a national network, and they're negotiating with Bill left and right, Bill left and right. Well, one of the guys from one of the NFL teams, he was a lower management guy. He lost his job. He goes to Bill and he says, Bill, I'm looking for work. And Bill hired him to become vice president of CBS Sports. The only thing this guy knew about TV was how to turn one on. Uh-oh. And his name was Ted Schramm. And one day, the NFL is having an awards dinner, and they invite Bill, and Bill doesn't want to go. He's getting invited to these things every week, being the president of the network, right? So Bill goes, hey, Tex, why don't you go to this award dinner tonight? Maybe you'll see some of your old NFL friends and, say hi to people you haven't seen in a while. So he does. Tex Schramm goes to this dinner. He sits at a table. He sits next to a guy who he had heard of, but he had never met before. He knew the name, but he had never met the guy before. And then 2 weeks later, Tex Schramm walks into Bill's office and goes, Bill, I don't know how to say this to you, but I've been working here 3.5 months. I have to quit. I got an opportunity to get back in the NFL. There's this brand new team in Dallas, and they're going to hire me to become the general manager. And Bill goes, that's fantastic. Not only are you getting back in the NFL, you're going to get a chance to build a brand new organization from the start, named the Dallas Cowboys. I can't be more happier for you. Tex Schramm, within a week, hires the guy that he was sitting next to at that dinner. He had never met Tom Landry before in his life.
Wow.
That dinner night. If he doesn't go to that dinner, Bill goes instead of Tex. The whole history of the Cowboys in the NFL, as all of us know it, is completely changed. So my point to this story is you just don't know who you're going to sit next to or talk to or meet. So when you go in these situations, man, take advantage of it. Because Tex went and met Tom Landry, and together they formed one of the dynasties in the NFL. And if he doesn't go to that, it just blows me away. If he doesn't go to that dinner, they don't hire Tom Landry. Isn't that crazy?
That is a crazy story, and actually answered one of my questions I was going to ask a little bit later. Well, a little bit later, in regards to just what would be how would you talk to people and let people know as far as pursuing goals and things of that nature, as far as broadcasting. But like you said, anything, and one of it is stay in contact with people because you never know where that might lie. So that was a perfect segue into that story there. That's a really cool story too. Tom Landry.
Wow, that's incredible.
That's pretty cool.
That's it. He just happened to sit next to him at the same table and they'd never met. And then within a month they're working together and building the Cowboys. That's just crazy.
I need to go out to dinner more.
Anyway. Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter where you are. If you're sitting around at a bar talking to somebody, just keep in touch with them. You just never know. You never know. You just never know. Anyway.
Wow.
So I want to tell you another story. I'm working in Erie, and I'm new on air. I've been on there for maybe, 3 months or so. And, I'm still learning. I knew the business, but, as far as your delivery and all that. And we didn't have early news on Sundays because of the NFL and CBS had the NBA package at the time. So I showed as many NBA highlights as I could. Now, the NBA wasn't all that popular in 84 and 85. It was just starting to grow with the Larry and Magic rivalry. But outside of Boston and LA, the Knicks were terrible. The Cavaliers were terrible. Buffalo didn't have a team. Pittsburgh didn't have a team. So Erie didn't, it wasn't a big NBA city, but I loved basketball. So, I showed a lot of it. And after 3 months, I go to this sports banquet. It's a small little high school. And they were going to have a couple of the Pirates, a couple of the Indians, maybe 1 or 2 Steelers and Browns there. For Erie, that's a great opportunity to meet these pro athletes, without having to spend the whole weekend going to a game. So I go down there, and this guy grabs me as I go to walk in the door. And he goes, "Hey, you the new guy?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I got to tell you, I love the NBA. You're the only one who shows NBA highlights." He goes, I just want you to know that a lot of people like watching you because of that. You should keep it up." And I said, "Oh, thank you very much. I will, because I love it too." And he goes, "I'm going to give you a little secret." He goes, there's a special guest coming tonight, and they're going to bring him in through the kitchen, the back door. And he goes, "If you want to get an interview, you better get in there, and trust me, you're going to want to interview this guy." So I'm looking out front. There's Willie Stargell. Don Robinson was a pitcher for the Pirates. I can't remember who was there from the Indians. And the other TV stations are interviewing them, and I got a chance to talk to Stargell, and the guy's telling me, "Get in the kitchen, get in the kitchen." So my point of the story is sometimes you have to take that chance. So I go in this kitchen, and I'm just standing there with my cameraman. And I'm thinking I'm either making the biggest mistake of my early career or something special is going to happen. But you got to roll the dice, right? And it's one of those old banquet style, they had the doors, one goes in, one goes out, the waiter would know, and I'm in everybody's way. And all of a sudden, the back door opens to the kitchen. And it's like a scene out of Goodfellas, all these big Italian guys come walking in these silk suits. And I'm like, holy shit. And I look right behind him. It's Joe DiMaggio.
No.
Oh my God! I tell my cameraman, turn the light on, and they come walking down. I go, "Mr. DiMaggio, could I ask you a few questions?" He goes, "Absolutely, young man." And he was just like everything you ever heard about the guy. He was first class, so smooth. I was so intimidated. I called him Mr. DiMaggio in every question. It was embarrassing. He was awesome. It was just unbelievable. He walked away. He allowed me to ask him 5 questions, and he left. And I'm looking around, and people are looking at me like, "Do you realize you just talked to Joe DiMaggio?" And I remember I'll never forget that for the rest of my life. I mean, I met Hank Aaron. I had the luxury of talking to Hank multiple times, in my career working with the Braves. And I only met Willie Mays once. But my goodness, I'm sitting there going, I'm 21 years old, and I'm talking to Joe DiMaggio. So the point of that is, take a chance.
Yeah.
Take a chance. I mean, what's it going to hurt? I don't know. Those are some crazy experiences I had early in my career. It's good fun.
I appreciate that so much, because it really gets down to, the worst thing that can happen is you get a no, or you can't go in there, or, we're going to hit you if you keep moving, but the best case scenario is you get to interview baseball royalty at its best in Joe DiMaggio there. That was an amazing story there for sure.
Yep, and the other 2 stations didn't get him because they were out front. By the time he walked out into the banquet hall, security was out there just paving away, path for him. So I took the chance to go in the kitchen, and it paid off for him. So, I'm not telling everybody to hang out in the kitchen, but I'm just telling you.
Wow, that's an incredible story. Wow, amazing. It's just amazing what can happen if you're in the right place at the right time sometimes, and you actually do take that initiative. You touched on speaking to Hank Aaron, and that was one of the questions I had. Unfortunately, we did lose Hank recently. In fact, my grandfather, his name is Henry, and he was nicknamed Hank after Hank Aaron. Just talk a little bit. I just want to say I was so happy to see the Braves win it for Hank this past year, and I'd just like to hear a little bit more about some of your interactions with Hank Aaron, who, for my money, is the greatest of all time. Just like to hear a little bit more about some of those interactions.
Well, one of the true honors of my career involves Hank, but unfortunately, it was when he passed. I got to host. We carried live the Braves tribute to Hank out at what's now Truist. And then the next day, we also broadcast live his funeral. And both of those were picked up by all the Valley regionals across the country. So I was hosting them, a nationwide event. And I did it with Mike Glenn was on one of them. Brian Jordan and Paul Berg were on the other. And it was just, I can't tell you how much that meant to me to be able to be the host, to be able to speak about Hank's life, not just what he did on the field, but just the person he was, what he did as a young man, how he changed the game. So many people focus on Jackie Robinson, and rightly so, but they overlook the contributions that Hank Aaron also gave, because Hank he didn't pound the table, but he never shied away from a question. And he was always so eloquent about his responses, but yet he was also very stern and insightful. So if you brought up something that was happening in the civil rights or something of racial injustice at the time, Hank never held back his opinion. He never did. And because of the way that he gave it, he was so widely respected over it. The writers, let's face it, in the 60s, it was a different time. Okay? It was all white writers. Everybody was white. They had a different view of Black America, a wrong view of Black America. And, for them to hear a Black athlete make a comment, they would dismiss that athlete. And they would give him a negative view in other aspects of him. They'd make snide remarks about him in the newspaper, based on his performance, only because they didn't like his response to a question the day before. He never did that with Hank. He never did that with Hank. Hank was so classy. A couple years ago, Marquise Grissom asked me to come to his charity event and interview Bo Jackson for the crowd, which was awesome. Bo was just incredible. And the year before, I was working a hockey game. I couldn't do it. Hank was the main event. But Hank and his wife were at that one. And I had met Hank several times, but my wife hadn't. And my wife cracks me up. She's a big sports fan, but she's real quiet, meek and mild. You know, she would never run up to a player, and you know, but she just enjoys meeting them. And you know, him and Billy, they were just so gracious to my wife. It was just, you know, I don't know how you explain that to people. I mean, the guy was just awesome.
Yeah.
You know, it's so easy for a man of that magnitude to be dismissive or to sit there and be short with you. Hank was never that way. Hank was never that way. He was just, he's just a great guy. He was a great guy. And he wasn't just a legendary ball player. He was a legendary person. I think that's the best way to describe Hank Aaron.
Man, Hank Aaron, I was this close to him, if people watching on YouTube, this close to him one time at an event that we were setting up for him at SunTrust Park a couple years ago. And the one word I think of is dignity. You know, he's such a dignified and established person. Besides the baseball part, we know who he is, of course, but besides that, he will still be dignified even if he never played baseball before.
Right.
That's how I looked at him. When every time you would see him every now and again around the ballpark or whatnot for events and things of that nature. So I definitely appreciate that. And we all, you know, we wish he had been here to watch the Braves win that World Series, but you know, we're very happy that they won it though too, in regards to that and his memory and everything. So definitely,
I'm sure he was looking down from above, you know, smiling at what took place to see those guys win the World Championship. But as both of you guys said, just a class act, and I never got the opportunity to meet him, but that's what just jumped off the screen with me as well, you know, because every time he'd ever be interviewed, I'd be locked in because I just heard so much about him from my grandfather and the older guys, you know, as I was growing up. So he just exuded class is the way I would describe him as well.
I don't like to talk religion with anybody because I respect everybody's opinion, but I'll say this. Hank was watching that World Series, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
He wasn't with us. He was watching.
I don't mind that, and I don't mind that at all personally, because I think I'm probably closer along the lines you are, but I'll just say I absolutely agree. He definitely was watching that from above.
Yeah.
Well, Jerome, I want to say it has been a pleasure and an honor having you on the show this evening. Again, thank you for taking the time out, first of all. I mentioned some of your compadres in the business earlier. They've been on the show a few times over the years, and this is actually our first interview of 2022. So we definitely, you know, are ecstatic that you were able to be on. But I do have one thing for you before we get ready to let you go for the evening. Of course, we're in that part of the year.
Well,
go ahead.
Let me just ask you this real quick.
Sure.
I'm the first interview, so I'm the leadoff man for 2022.
Yes. You're the man. You are the man. Definitely.
All right. What do you got for me? What do you got?
Well, of course, we're at that part of the year where, you know, you have to, you know, look at retooling your football teams in the NFL. You know, the city of Atlanta has a football team. That's the Atlanta Falcons. So I just want to get your quick opinion on our first round pick yesterday.
Well, first of all, I'm a diehard Steeler fan, so I like our pretty darn good quarterback. We're going to need a quarterback. Now, as far as the Falcons are concerned, here's the one thing about the Falcons that just kills me. By the way, when I moved here, I was so excited to be, you know, to root for the Falcons. I was on a apartment complex. I was living out in Gwinnett at the time. And Gwinnett's part of Atlanta. I don't care what you guys say. We're all Atlanta.
Well, I agree with you, Jerome. I agree with you. It's Atlanta.
That's right. And lo and behold, the girl I'm dating, she's taking these aerobics classes with these other women. They're all buddies. And next thing you know, that's David Archer's, I don't know if it was his girlfriend or his wife. Next thing I know, I'm at a Braves game with David Archer, and it was the year that they got really good.
Nice.
So, look, I've always rooted for the Falcons. I've always wanted them to win. But it kills me that organization just keeps tripping over itself. I thought that was a good pick yesterday. I think I'm a casual Falcons fan, so I don't have the insights of the team that you guys do because you probably live and die with them. I live and die with Pittsburgh. But look, that team needs receivers. That team needs receivers bad. So I like this kid. They're going to have – look, I still think you got an issue with quarterback there, but you got some big guys throwing to catch the ball. You know, and that's good. When Mariota goes back to pass, he's not going to have any problems seeing which one is his receiver because those guys are all pretty good guys.
Yeah.
I think it's a good call. You know, that being said, being a Penn State guy, I don't know if he's still available. I think round 2 is already on. But there's this kid out of Penn State, Buke, or however you say his last name. He's an edge rusher.
Hey, guess what? We drafted him.
Yep.
Yep. You're going to love this kid. He's got a high motor. The kid has got a high motor. And, you know, I think that's a nice song. Good. I'm glad. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about that. And you know what also I'm excited about? The fact that the Steelers are playing here in Atlanta this year. I can't wait.
Oh, wow. Really? Oh, it all comes together for you, Jerome. Oh, wow.
The thing with the Steelers is my mom, she actually lived in Pittsburgh during the 70s, the glory years when they were winning championships. She got a chance to meet a couple of those guys, Franco Harris and Lynn Swan and those guys. But the thing about Pittsburgh is they have fans everywhere. It's like, if they come in here and whoop us this year, you're going to see yellow towels waving everywhere because their fan base is one of the biggest fan bases in the entire NFL.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of terrible towels inside that stadium. It's going to be a down year for the Steelers. They're in a rebuilding mode. But you know what? The beauty of the Steelers is a bad year for them is 8 or 9 wins. Yeah, you know that's a bad year for them. So that organization probably is as much as any organization in the NFL. They know what they're doing, and they've been doing it since Chuck Noll was hired in '69. So, you know, even if they've
only had 3 coaches,
year, that's okay. Yeah, and each one of them has won a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
it's just amazing.
Right. I just love Coach Tomlin's demeanor.
The Falcons needed to take that wide receiver yesterday because, I've always been hesitant to take wide receivers in the first round because there are so many skilled wide receivers out there. I mean, you look at Pittsburgh, we got Hines Ward in the 3rd round. We got Steele Brown in the 6th round. There are steals out there at that position because it's such an athletic position, and sports has changed in 50 years. You know, I mean, when you got a chance to get a guy like Julio, you get him. I understand that. But my point is, you can get a really good wide receiver in the 3rd and 4th round. You just got to do your homework.
There you go.
But, you know, Falcons have so many needs. You might as well start with the most glaring one. And because of how many guys you lost, how many big guys you lost, you know, wide receivers the last couple of years, big names, you got to do what you got to do. So,
yeah,
I wish them well. Hope they do well, you know. It's always better, any city that you live in, I don't care where you live in America, if you're in a big city, it's always better if the NFL team is winning. I don't care whether it's your NBA team, hockey team, if the NFL team is winning, there's a different atmosphere in that city. It's just amazing. It just really is. It just really is. So
that's the truth.
Fellas, it was good chat with you. I enjoyed my time. I got nothing else for you, but I'm willing to talk to you anytime you want. So you call me anytime.
Man, we appreciate that so much, Jerome, and I'm hoping that everybody who listens or watch definitely appreciated you too. You have a nice rest of the evening and a great weekend too, sir. Okay.
All right, guys. Take care.
Thank you so much, Jerome.
And that, folks, was a great interview with Mr. Jerome Jurenovich. Hopefully you appreciated everything he had to say, the stories that he came to us with, which I didn't know we were going to have stories tonight, but hey, I'm not going to say no to a good story. And just appreciate his history over time. And one of the reasons I was going to ask him in regards to, you know, starting in broadcasting of any kind, whether it be television or radio or whatever, to say how to get there. That's why I kind of got tongue-tied, because I was still getting over his story. and just the bits and pieces and knowledge that he brought to the table. Hopefully you definitely will appreciate that. But that's the way, the beauty of YouTube, that, hey, this is going to always be around for people to watch for years and years to come. So definitely, appreciate Jerome for being on the show. And he got excited for the fact that he knew he was the first interview of 2022. So I'm just trying to tell you, hey, guess what? Here, the controversy part, Jordan. People do enjoy coming to around the ATL. Hidden joke. 646-652-4479. We are actually on the air for another hour. I believe we're going to stay on for another hour. So we're going to take a little bit of a break and kind of get things together to talk about this draft that is still ongoing. I believe we're on pick 40 right now.
I think that was incredible. The guy he suggested that we
wasn't that cool?
Was the guy that we drafted?
Because I was eyeing it. I looked over at the TV, Joe. I was like, wait a minute, that does sound familiar. Wait a minute, we got that guy.
I had just looked at it a few minutes before he said that, just trying to get an update on it. And I was like, okay, cool, we got an edge rusher. And lo and behold, it's the guy he wanted us to draft. So I thought that was a cool moment right there.
So if he says that's the guy, that's a pretty good sign as far as I'm concerned. I'm gonna go with Jerome on that one. So everybody, 646-652-4479. If you want to go ahead and call in, we'll put you on hold and we'll start talking about the draft. We'll of course talk about the first round, which was yesterday. We'll talk about the ongoing second round right now. We have another pick that's coming up, or have we already passed it? I'm not sure. I couldn't. No. I can only do but so much at the same time. Of course, I got the matrix going on in here, but we're going to take a little bit of a break. So let's see what we're going to do. We are going to play a little tune, and let's see if I can find which one's going to be. No, I'm not going to play competition. Let's see. We'll play a little daylight. So we'll come back, and we'll go over the first round, and we'll discuss, whether or not it was our best interest pick or best player. We'll get into all of that, and then we'll catch up on the second round, and we'll go from there. So if you want to call into the show, let's go ahead and put the number up, 646-652-4479. But in the meantime, don't go anywhere. This is Chris on Around the ATL on IMTN Worldwide Radio. Again, shout out to Jerome Jurenovich for being on the show. That was one of our best interviews, I would say, probably. Well, I don't want to say ever, because we've had some top ones, but it's right up there now. And definitely is the best one for 2022. Obviously, he put that in there for himself. So we'll be right back on the show. Don't go anywhere. Peace. We are back. This is Chris on Around the ATL and IMTN Worldwide Radio, and we are just finishing up a great interview with the great Jerome Jurenovich. 40 years in the broadcast business, 15 with the Braves Live and Hawks Live broadcast. That again, he brought it every night to get us hyped for that game. You know, whatever the circumstances were, we wanted to know what the story was for that night and ongoing. So he did a great job of that, and definitely appreciate his stories from this evening. It's always good to get from somebody who has experience in the business, and you know, is it cool to hear those stories. So hopefully, those who did get to watch and will watch in the future or listen will definitely appreciate that. And he did say he'll come back again, so we'll definitely look down the road of having him on the show. Maybe he can convince somebody. I've been trying to get on the show for a long time to come on to the show, but I don't want to start any controversy right now, so I'll go ahead and get into the next thing. Jordan, you know who I'm talking about.
Right. I tell you what, he did mention David Archer. That's probably be a good guy to talk to as well, because old Arch, he knows his football stuff, and you know, from being a quarterback to the Falcons to now being I'm an analyst with 92.9 The Game. I'm sure that was a good time, you know, get a chance to sit and watch a game with Arch. But just want to thank Jerome Jurenovich so much, man. You know, great stories. Like you said, wasn't anticipating getting those bonus stories, but, man, they were great. And I could really listen to those guys that have that experience, you know, in sports, and especially in Atlanta sports, tell those type of stories all day long, to be honest with
you. Yep. 646-652-4479 is the number. I was trying to get that out earlier. Got a little tongue-tied. So The Atlanta Falcons. So right now the second round is ongoing, and we know that they have gotten a edge rusher for sure. Now, I believe our next pick is what, 50, 58 or so. I know we do have one Georgia Bulldog that's out there still that we can maybe get. All won't be lost. Dean is still
There's still a few out there, but one of the main ones is still out there.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. And it looks like the Vikings pick is in, and they're having to tell the guy on the stage to actually read the card. That's terrible right there. Never seen that happen before. He actually had somebody, producer. I don't know what they said. It looks like it was funny. So I have to watch the – oh, my goodness. He just hit the podium. I don't know what's going on here, but I guess he got mad, hit the podium, and now he's shouting. I don't know what's going on here, Jordan. This is kind of strange, but that was kind of scary there. Andrew Booth, so they didn't pick Dean. So maybe, I don't know, maybe the Falcons will have to move up to get him, to make sure they get him, because 58 is a good ways away from 42. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, still 15 picks away because it's down to pick number 43 right now on the Giants. But as you said, we did get an edge rusher, so that's something that's definitely good, a good thing, something that brings hope. The fact that they are actually trying to address the pass rush.
Well, that being said, when you get a chance, pull up his name so we can make sure we pronounce it correct, because I'm going to go ahead and –
I have the name pulled up. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly or not, but I give it a try. It's Arnold Ibiketti. Arnold Ibiketti. 6'3", 253-pound defensive end, outside linebacker, out of Penn State University. Spent his first 3 college years at Temple, where he had 6 sacks total in his first 3 years. Had his breakout year last year after transferring to Penn State. 9.5 sacks, 18 tackles for a loss for the Nittany Lions last year in the Big Ten. So definitely promising, to see a guy that's not only an edge rusher, but a productive edge rusher being drafted by the Atlanta Falcons. Let me just give you a couple of notes on him here as I pull up my trusty notepad. It says Ibiketti has long arms and is a master of preventing offensive tackles from locking onto his pads as he advances his pass rush. He knows how to attack linemen and counters well when he doesn't win initially. He has some issues anchoring when teams run at him, but he is relentless at the point of attack. And that's from Steve Munich. And according to draft scout Matt Miller, he says Ibiketti will provide a much-needed boost to the Falcons' edge rushing game and should factor into the rotation of defensive end very early in his career. He has an ideal skill set to fill an outside linebacker role in DP's 3-4 scheme. So I like that pick. I do.
Well, you see, I got him up on the screen so everybody can see it real quick. I'm quick like that, So that's our first pick of the second round, and we'll definitely be able to delve into that player a lot more over the next couple of weeks. And we do have a show that's coming up, y'all. It's going to be the review show of the 2022 NFL Draft, so be looking out for that. 646-652-4479 if you want to talk about that pick. But definitely let's kind of delve into a little bit on the subject matter from day one of the draft in regards to, needs analysis, and even Jerome mentioned it a little bit in regards to the needs of having a receiver, and I do agree with that. However, at the same time, our immediate need, our desperate need, our need of not having one player have as many sacks as our whole team kind of is there too, and yes, the draft is not a guarantee. Nothing ever goes as you expect it sometimes. But it does tend where you do get that player in the higher rounds that they do tend to be pretty spectacular at the same time. But again, that's based off the player themselves wanting to do it, and then also coaching, getting them to that point. So a lot of things do have to go right. And I just feel that at that number 8 pick, it would have been apropos to pick one of those guys that was there still, or even use that pick and use another pick and maybe move up a little bit, even if you had to get the best player available. And I just don't know in this particular case. And again, he's a great player, but even if we're going the best player available, I don't know if he was the best wide receiver as opposed to the couple of wide receivers that went after him even. I mean, if we're just going by what's on paper and production-wise, you did have one player who had 35 touchdowns total. You had another one who had 23 touchdowns total. And 15 touchdowns, or was it 12 or 13 touchdowns is less than those two figures. So I'm just going by that. But Jordan, our number 8 pick who we did draft, go ahead and give us a little bit of breakdown on him and his name and everything.
But before I go there, I just want to real quick, because a lot of people, they get on me if I don't like the way something happens and they call me negative. But so let me be positive for a second first, okay? Trayvon Walker, Jordan Davis, okay, Devontae Wyatt, Lewis Seen, Quay Walker. That's 5 Georgia Bulldog defenders drafted in the first round. Never before has 5 defensive players on the same team be drafted in the first round. And on top of that, 2 of those guys went to the Green Bay Packers, who also took Georgia corner Eric Stokes last year. So apparently somebody in Green Bay knows what they're doing. But I just want to congratulate all 5 of those young men. And I just think it was a great night to be a Georgia Bulldogs fan. And you got to be so happy to see all of those Georgia Bulldogs going in the first round, making all their dreams come true the way that took place. So love that. As far as Drake London at number 8, it's to me it's not a matter of whether Drake can play or not. He may be the best receiver out of this draft. Some people had him as that. Some people had him as number 2. Some people had him as number 3. But I will say that he better be the best receiver out of this draft when it's all said and done. Particularly, he's got to be better than the Ohio State wide receiver, Chris Olave, I think is how you say his last name, because he was drafted by the rival Hates. So you cannot let your rival take a wide receiver a few picks after you take one, and then that guy turned out to be better. You are looking at a disaster if that happens. And so that cannot happen. One of my concerns with Drake London also was the fact that he broke his ankle last season. And so a lot like Julio Jones, who came in with a fracture, he has a fracture coming in. And as we know, Julio ended up having to get the titanium turbo foot. That's what I call it, but it was really just a titanium screw inserted in his foot, and it was a problem for him off and on, to the point where he missed snaps a lot of his career. So hopefully that won't be the case with Drake London. But Drake London is 6'5", around 210, 215 pounds. So he's a big wide receiver. Caught 88 passes for 1,084 yards and 7 touchdowns last season. That was in 8 games, as we mentioned, because he had the injury that caused him to miss the rest of last season. Obviously, the Pac-12 played a short schedule in 2020 where he only played 6 games, caught 33 balls for 502 yards, 3 touchdowns. And the season before that, his freshman year, he played 8 games, caught 39 balls for 567 yards and 5 touchdowns. So, when you really look at it, it's really not a lot of experience for a guy who spent 3 years in college. You're looking at only a total of 24 games, in a college career, which is really equivalent to about 2 seasons as opposed to 3. Obviously, he can't control what happened with the COVID situation. Let me just pull up what some of the scouts have said about him here. So, of course, now we got internet issues with live program. But as that's pulling up, I will just say this. I don't think it's about that kid being a bad pick. For me, and like, Mr. Jerome said, wide receiver is definitely a need, but we have a lot of positions that were a big need. And as I talked about in our last show, just watching games and seeing the other team just noticeably be more physical. I mean, to the point where it just pops off the screen at you how much more physical the other team is. And that's something that I felt like, we need to prioritize. And, Yeah, the very next edge rusher, Jermaine Johnson, he slid down to number, what was it, 26. Just traded back up to get him. So maybe he wasn't the guy to take at number 8. But as opposed to taking Drake London there, what I would have done, I would have taken the guy who went 9th, Charles Cross, the offensive tackle out of Mississippi State. Charles Cross played in Mike Leach's air raid offense, which throws the football every time, and he only allowed 2 sacks the entire season. I mean, I'm talking about they throw the football every down.
Yeah.
And he only allowed 2 sacks. And so, I said it on my draft preview show, I felt like he was the best pass blocking tackle in the entire draft. So as many times as Matt Ryan has been hit over the last few years, I kind of have a hard time understanding how you pass on the best pass blocking tackle in the entire draft. And so, I mean, like I said, Mr. Drake London is here. I'm going to root for him. I'm going to support him. I don't necessarily think that he was a bad pick. I just think that we should have went in another direction because, ultimately you need to build your football team from the inside out as opposed to the outside in. And the last regime built their team more on a lot of skilled position type players. And even though we had success and we really should have a Super Bowl, we don't have one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's why I would have went in a different direction, Chris. Real quick, couple of notes on Drake London, according to some of the scouts here. Matt Miller says that Drake London is an elite red zone target, a former basketball standout, teammate of Onyeka Okongwu at USC, in fact, who excels at making contested catches thanks to his ability to box out and contort his body while adjusting in the air. He's smooth getting out of breaks and excels at finding pockets in zone looks. London breaks tackles and flashes quick feet after the catch. And the NFL comparison here was Matt Miller. My guy Jordan Goodman, son of Jamie Goodman of the Dogcats we had on here, he's very good at evaluating wide receivers, and he said that London reminds him of Marcus Colston. Of course, he used to play for our enemy rival there. A bit more analysis, it says London could be the A.J. Brown and Arthur Smith's offense now that he has moved to Atlanta. He will dominate on slant routes and also to give quarterback Marcus Mariota, or should I say Omarata, and jump ball target in the red zone. He'll enter the offense as the team's wide receiver 1. Projected year 1 impact, day 1 starter with Calvin Ridley suspended for the year, Black Pete rules. London projects as the number 1 wide receiver for the Falcons and could be in the mix for offensive rookie of the year if Omarata plays well. And, when we say number 1 wide receiver, that's what we mean, number 1 wide receiver, not number 1 overall target, because I still think that distinction would belong to Mr. Kyle Pitts.
646-652-4479. So I agree. It's not in regards to anything negative to London. It's just a matter of we're just going by what our general manager said earlier in regards to best player available, because that's kind of what they did last year, supposedly, right? So that if we're going by that, it was just a matter of best available player, but also could fit a need that we definitely have. And again, we have Mel Kiper on ESPN said we have 1 billion needs, and we do. There is a wealth of wide receivers in this draft. I think a few wide receivers have been picked since we've been on the air as well, who have all of the intangibles that you would need. They're big, they're tall, they got length, they can get separation, they can do all those things, and with some coaching, the sky's the limit. Again, Devontae Adams wasn't a top round draft pick either, was he? No. There's so many examples in the draft. Jerome just mentioned Hines Ward, Antonio Brown, 6th round. You can imagine, So the talent is there, but for us, we have some needs to where we gotta be able to stop some people, and we need to be able to protect people, and we need to be able to run the ball. So I don't think we would have been at all wrong in addressing some of those needs at that point, because again, it does affect everything else that you do after the fact too for the next couple of days. It's that domino effect. And as the first part of the draft kind of started taking shape, it was a matter of, okay, well, where do you go? What adjustments are you going to make as we get closer and closer to number 8? So we're going to see. Like you said, it's definitely one of those situations where there is a little bit of pressure, in regards to Mr. London doing well, and I'm sure he's going to do well. But my other concern is it's a matter of, at this point in time, who's throwing him the ball too. If Matt was still here, I wouldn't be saying nothing at all, right? If Matt was still here, but Matt is not here, in this particular case. And again, the guy that we got is a placeholder by default, but he was a backup for a reason, in the last couple of years, and it was his 2 previous seasons to that, so I have a question mark on who's getting Drake the ball enough for him to be, valuable to us. And then going into next year as well, whoever we end up drafting is not going to necessarily start next year either. So I would hate for Drake to not get full utilization, because I'm afraid in regards to Pitts as well, and even CP being here. So a lot of stuff has to go right. Guess what? We need to be able to pass protect to give Marcus enough time to get to these guys still, right? And we still got to be able to offset that with some kind of running game, which guess what? That goes back into blocking, because we weren't great at that last year. We just were not. So again, a lot of other holes have to be filled. And again, the best player, I don't know, for this particular situation, we need to go wide receiver. And another thing that you mentioned, Jordan, the injury history part of it. We already went through a lot with players who are wide receivers missing games for one reason or another last few years. I don't want to go through that no more. I know some things you can't control, but in this case, you kind of did, So I'm just, I don't know. We're going to see. And again, it's not that we're saying anything bad about Drake London as far as him being a player. It's just a matter of, was he the right player at this point in time at that pick at number 8? We might be able to get him a little bit later still, possibly, if it was that match. You saw where the other players went, right? So again, it's just one of those deals where we're going to find out sooner or later, probably sooner, how this is going to pan out. But yeah, it was a surprise. Let's just put it like that for sure. 646-652-4479. Your next point, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, that was a run on wide receivers after we took the first one off the board. So we may or may not have been able to get him later. The thing about it is, though, I thought it was interesting that Terry Fontenot said that he actually did receive calls of people that wanted to trade up, but he never even seriously entertained trading back a few picks. And like you said, even if Matt Ryan was still here, I would still have the same issue, because we left the best pass blocking tackle on the board. And I mean, obviously he was worthy because he was picked the next pick by Seattle. You know what I mean? So, that's my main issue, more so about what what Drake brings to the table himself. And I mean, personally, if I'm gonna take a wide receiver really high, I would like them to have that combination of size and speed, like a Julio had, like a Megatron Calvin Johnson had. Drake has the size part of it, but speed is not quite to that level. I mean, he ran like a 4.5 40 in the past. Obviously, he wasn't able to run the 40 this year because he's recovering from that ankle injury. As opposed to Julio, for example, he ran a 4.39 on a fractured foot. You know what I mean? So there's a big speed discrepancy there. And I was trying to pull up the particular year, but this is the first time in many years that a team has taken pass catchers back-to-back in the top 10, top 8 in the Falcons case, since the Cleveland Browns did it, where they picked Braylon Edwards, a wide receiver, and tight end Kellen Winslow Jr. in back-to-back years. It didn't quite work out so well for the Cleveland Browns. So definitely hoping it works out a little bit better for the Atlanta Falcons. Like I said, to me, it's not about can this kid play. It's not even about did we need a wide receiver, because we did. What it's about here is how do you build a football team? That's what it's about. And, when I look back into history, almost every offensive lineman that the Falcons have drafted in the top 15 did pretty well. Jake Matthews was a top 15 pick. Chris Lindstrom was pick number 14. Even when you go back to guys like Lincoln Kennedy and you know, he maybe didn't do as well here, but when you go back to some of the former offensive linemen that we've had, you know, throughout history, they all the ones that were picked in the top 15 did pretty well. When you look at the ones that were picked outside of the top 15, oh man, the results are not nearly as good. You're talking Sam Baker, you're talking Caleb McGarry, and there's a slew of guys that were taken in the later rounds that didn't pan out. The center from Wisconsin, Peter Carnes, who was shortly out of the league after being let go by Atlanta. Guard from Alabama taken in around the third round, Mike Johnson, never turned out to be anything. I mean, there's so many names to name in that aspect. And so that's why I just think when you're building a football team almost from scratch, you need to start at the line of scrimmage. You need to be able to have somebody that can whoop that guy lined up across from them, whether it be an offensive lineman that can whoop a defensive lineman or a defensive lineman that can whoop an offensive lineman and get the other team's quarterback. Because honestly, I don't care if you got Randy Moss at wide receiver, Jerry Rice at your other receiver, and you know, Joe Montana throwing them the football. If you cannot protect your quarterback, you cannot run the football, and you cannot sack the other team's quarterback, you're not going to win big, sir. You're not going to go platinum like that.
One thing I will say too, and Jerome mentioned this in regards to like a team like the Steelers, in regards to an organization and being run, one of the reasons why is that they do it, and here I guess the terminology is doing it the right way. It's not so much doing it the right way, it's the way that works. So why would you want to go away from building the team in a way that works, that has sustainability, and you're winning every year? Because that's the point, right? Is that you're winning. We're in the midst right now where we haven't had a winning record in the last 4 years, and we should have been more competitive, and we know that and everything. We know all the circumstances with the Falcons and everything. But how many more losing seasons can be endured at a certain point, right? And if you're not going to finally say, okay, this is what the whole point of having this new regime, I was hoping and I'm still hoping to get it right, to say, let's do it right now, because we didn't do right by our former quarterback. We didn't. And they know it. So why would you continue to go the opposite? Because eventually you're going to have a new quarterback. And if you still can't protect him, whoever that's going to be, and you still don't have a running game to offset things like other teams can, what are we even really doing? You see what I'm saying? Because that's backwards. And we're not going to win like that. Again, like you threw out some great names, Jerry Rice, Randy Moss. It won't matter if you got those guys if your quarterback is on the ground looking at the top of Mercedes-Benz. That ain't cool.
Right.
It just isn't cool at a certain point. So the eventuality is, do we fill those holes this year? You know, and again, remember we had our show the other night, our draft show, and we talked about the few free agents that we had to kind of fill in some blanks and a little bit of needs there, you know, a little bit on the defensive side, right? But nothing really on the trenches side, right? And so we're really depending on this draft to do that a lot. Unless you're going to get a whole bunch of undrafted free agents and hope for the best, you're rolling the dice at that point, you know. But yeah, exactly. So, and also, of course, don't forget this: a second year of coaching the team that we do have up. Now that does go into play a little bit, and whether or not you have players that can get better and the players that want to get better to say, hey, we need to do our jobs. Because whoever the next quarterback of the future is coming in, it's on us for real now. Again, at the end of the day, you failed Matt. All right, it is what it is. Matt's gone, you know. So are you going to do it again? Because this is your career now. Like, seriously, like it has to be that in their mindset to say, I didn't do as good as I should have. Can I improve? Do I want to improve? And then it's up to management and the coaching staff to say, are you going to settle if they can't? You see what I'm saying? You can't just let things just keep going the way they were. We are on number 48, just picked Jaquan Brisker going to the Bears. So Dean is still out there. 646-652-4479. Who will be the Falcons' next pick in the NFL draft this year? We're going to find out in a few more picks. We'll probably go over some of these guys who've been kind of going by the wayside. Alabama just had another guy drafted. Obviously, you know, they were a good team last year. Jordan, any other points as we continue watching the ticker here to see who we get next in the draft?
Well, my other point is that if you didn't want to take Charles Cross for whatever reason, I don't know why you wouldn't want to take him. I think the only knock on him was he played in such a pass-heavy offense, teams didn't really get a chance to see his run blocking a lot, but he was a good run blocker when he first got there and coming out of high school. The fact is that he wasn't even recruited to play in that air raid scheme. They changed coaches, and he was put into a pass-heavy scheme like that. But if you didn't want to take him, the other guy who I would have taken was the man who went 13th, Mr. Jordan Davis, the mammoth behemoth defensive tackle, because as I stated on last week's show, and I'll state it again, you take him and you put him in the middle of your defensive line, you're not going to have to worry about teams running the football on you anymore. You know what I mean? So that, and it frees up, you know, your edge guys to turn loose, because when a team can't run, eventually they're going to stop running and they're going to start just throwing the ball. And so it helps your pass rushers. And so that's where I would have went other than Drake London. But like I said, you know, hopefully Drake London works out for us. And the other point with that is, had you taken Charles Cross or Jordan Davis, you still would have had John Mitchie, who just went at 44, available as a wide receiver. I
mentioned him the other night too.
Right. You still would have had Waddell Robinson, who I mentioned out of Kentucky the other night as a playmaker. That was the smaller, the 5'8" receiver with blazing speed, you know, that does a lot of the slot stuff. And you still would have had a chance to pick George Pickens, who is still on the board. He's still right now. So I think you could have gotten more value had you taken either Cross or Jordan Davis and then turned around and went receiver with this second round, with, you know, one of these second round draft picks. Like I said, we're coming up at 58. What I would like to see here is an offensive lineman. The guy I mentioned, Lucas out of Washington State, the powerful pass blocking right tackle, run blocking and pass blocking, powerful right tackle. That's who I would like to see taken with this pick. Yeah, that's what I want to see, or some good offensive lineman, because I get a little worried about, you know, bringing in offensive lineman after the second round, thinking that they may possibly start. I mean, we saw what a third round starter looked like last year, and that was Jalen.
Yeah, see, and you just saying that made me kind of change my mind a little bit more, because at the end of the day, I'm like, this is probably our last chance to actually get a UGA guy at this point, because all the rest of them been drafted, obviously, and trying to see if we can pull Dean, because, again, we do have –
it's going to be hard not to, though. But
that's what I'm saying. I mean, he's there. He does fill a void that we have, and he is one of the best, no matter what. I don't care he's in the second round right now. But if we get him, he's going to be one of the steals of the draft by far. Okay.
Yeah. And you're going to get a guy with a chip on his shoulder, because he's going to be pissed off watching all his teammates, who he was pretty much the leader of, go before him. Now, obviously, he's happy for those guys, but he's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder. So I wouldn't be mad if that were a pick at all. But if not, certainly I'd like to see an offensive lineman. There are still a couple other Georgia guys left. Jamari Sawyer, for example, is out there. You got
the night too.
Right, and you got both of the Georgia running backs, Zamir White as well as James Cook, still on the board. So there are still some chances to get some UGA players out there, and I still want to see. I want to see at least two, at least one for sure.
Well, right now, we're I don't know. We're going to get half of one at this point. I don't know. It ain't looking good, man.
I think the Georgia punter I like also, though. I think the Georgia punter would be better than the punters we had. So if he's one that's picked, you know, in the 6th or 7th round, I wouldn't be mad at that either. But
punter is a definitely an important position on the special team side of the ball. It can turn you a game, you know. Getting somebody to return the ball wouldn't be a bad thing eventually. I don't know if we still have that person or not, but, you know, that's another story. But, you know, I really want to see us try to see if we can pull off getting Dean. Because it does feel an immediate need. It put, especially with the defensive lineman you did get. So those two players right there I would say could be starters, you know, and that'll be great right there. So because think about it, if you are able to get Dean, you technically in your first 3 picks have 3 starters possibly. right? I mean, I don't see some of those receivers that I read the names of the other day beating out London. Not all of them. I don't see it. You know what I'm saying? If you picked him at 8th, you're not going to start that guy? That would be crazy. I don't know. Crazier things have happened, though, I guess, right? So, again, it's about filling in these holes that are immediate and then finding out whether or not the coaching staff can do what they're supposed to do. Because think about it. If we're able to get Dean in with Pease being here, can you imagine? Like I said, I think that will be a great start going forward to get us regulated. Because remember, we did win 2 more games than the year before. And that's all I'm looking at is that progression as well. I don't want us to go backwards. Like I don't think we're not ready for a 2-win season right now. We just can't do that, And whether or not we do draft a quarterback or not before the end of this draft, again, right now it's not. The experts out here are basically kind of proving that this was not the draft for a quarterback, right? So I've been saying it from the get-go, and this was before Matt was gone, that we didn't need to do that. We didn't need to do that this year. Next year, all in, whatever we got to do. But I don't think we need to take a pick and put it into a quarterback that at the end of the day, again, it's a hodgepodge, So we got too many other holes to fill in. Hopefully Marcus can be an adequate fill-in, stopgap, whatnot. And maybe this will be his coming out party. He's back. I don't know. We'll find out. If we get that version, you just never know. I mean, we might win 10 games. I'm being positive right now. I'm trying to, man. I'm trying. Anyway, 646-652-4479. Thanks for all that. Stephen Patrick said, great show as always. So it looks like he was able to dip in a little bit. Because we know the draft is going on right now and the Braves are playing. I don't even know what the score is. Let's find out what the score is real quick, I guess. But again, we were focused on having our great interview with the magnificent, I'll throw that out there, Jerome Jurenovich. Because think about it, 40 years in broadcasting is no, that's not easy to do. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot. And think about it. He mentioned the schedule as far as like going to the Braves game and things of that nature. That's literal. Like you have to be there. You're fighting traffic and things of that nature to be there at the park basically 3 hours before the ballpark even really opens up to the public. And you're getting all your stuff together and things of that nature. And then you're on the air. And then depending on when that game ends, you might not be getting home literally until – for him might be 12 midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, possibly. Like I said, for me, I sometimes didn't get home till 3 a.m., and then have to get up and kind of do it all over again. And you're talking about homestand, you're talking about 8 days, 9 days in a row doing that. So for him to do that for such a long time, for him to be able to appreciate taking a nap in the middle of the day, that was really cool to hear. I'm just saying, because, naps are cool. I'm just saying, But yeah, Jerome was great. So that was what we were focused on for tonight. But now that we're draft central right now, we definitely want to kind of pick apart, a little bit more from, last night, obviously, and what we're going to do tomorrow even as well. Let's see where we at. 15.
Pistol Pete ATL on Twitter says, would they ever let Danny Ainge be GM of the Lakers? Could Mike Tomlin ever coach the Ravens? I'm going to have to filter this because there's some language I can't use on the family show here. Why would the blank Falcons pick up this op, Terry Fontenot from the Saints? He is clearly sabotaging us at this point. It's a good question. It's a good question. I mean,
know the power of the dark side.
I mean, it does sound kind of suspicious. I'm just saying. It just at the moment that it happened, it was a tough pill to swallow with all the needs that we knew we had, with the situation of not having Matt here anymore and knowing all the holes that needed to be filled. There was literally dozens of wide receivers. I'm just going to say it. So, and if you're going to get a wide receiver, again, for me, I would say let's get the best one then. The best one per everything, all again, I'm gonna just say it. And I'm sorry if London never chooses to be on around the ATL. Criticism is part of the game. When you sign a contract, you put yourself out there to be drafted. It's just a matter of circumstances. Me and myself and Jordan have nothing against Drake London at all. Believe me, we don't. It's just a matter of it just didn't make complete sense for where we need. We actually had the number 8 pick. If we had a lower pick, I wouldn't, it is what it is. But at 8, and who was still there, like I said, Jordan Davis was still actually there. You know what I'm saying? And certain other people, and maybe it would have been a reach with Mr. Was it Jermaine Johnson? Maybe it would have been a reach, but I don't know. I don't know.
Right.
Because, again, sometimes people fall because the needs of the team just doesn't map out. Again, think about how the draft started. You see what I'm saying? And again, once your number 1 pick went to Jags, who Mel Copper hated that pick, you could tell. They were all on Aiden Hutchinson being number 1. You could just see your shoulders were down and stuff. I could just see it. They had all kinds of stuff planned for that pick, obviously. And so when, you UGA come in there and say, we're taking over, yeah, you could tell. I was like, y'all are kind of dismissive on, but that's okay though. All right, whatever. But once that did happen, it kind of set up how everything else was going. And again, at number 8, I think we should have went defense. Again, we need defense. We need to stop people. We weren't stopping people no way, no how last year like we needed to. And there was bits and pieces where we did improve, but the places where we weren't improved in, this is the draft to do it. It was loaded for us to do it. The national champions were making it loaded for us to be able to do this. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see. We're gonna find out. 64665 I forgot the number. 646-6497. I forgot the number, Jordan. 646-652-4479. I'm trying to get myself together for this next pick because it's coming up. We're number 58. The Patriots pick is in the number 51, so we're going to see who they get. And we're still waiting for the guy to come out there. So
yeah, we're getting close. But like I said, Abraham Lucas out of Washington State is a guy I like. Jabari Sawyer is a guy who I wouldn't mind seeing us take with one of these next few picks. Another guy who I wouldn't mind seeing us taking with this next pick, if he hadn't come off the board yet, is another USC Trojan, Drake Jackson, the edge rusher. Somebody said, well, you just took an edge rusher. Take another one. Take another one.
Have enough.
Especially the fact that we don't really have any that's established as far as with a track record of getting to the quarterback. And so if you take 2, that just gives you a better chance.
Odds are for you in that case.
Right. If you're on the next one of them. Right. So certainly wouldn't mind seeing them continue to, because I just think that's one of those positions that you need to continue to address until, you get it right. Because, it's hard to win without that. I mean, as good as Matthew Stafford is and Cooper Kupp is, if they didn't have Aaron Donald, that team does not win the Super Bowl, sir.
No, it's not even a question mark.
Right. And so right. So whether it's the guy that gets to the quarterback from the edge or whether it's the guy that's going to get to the quarterback from the interior, you got to have guys getting to the quarterback. As far as wide receivers go, I mean, it's hard for me to say. I know a lot of people really believed that Jameson Williams out of Alabama was the best receiver. Now, obviously, he tore his ACL in the game against Georgia, but a lot of people still think ultimately he's going to be the best wide receiver of the bunch. Also, a lot of people think that Garrett Wilson out of Ohio State would be the best receiver of the bunch. Definitely not as big, but more of that game-breaking, take it to the house speed. And like I told someone on Twitter, I see what they're trying to do with these big receivers, which is all well and good, but you telling me you wouldn't take Tyreek Hill, who's 5'10" on your team? I mean, Hines Ward is the best blocking wide receiver of all time, and he's 6 feet tall. You know what I mean? So I don't think necessarily have to be a giant to be successful at the wide receiver position. And one more final note. Well, go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
I was just going to say in regards to Jameson, yeah, we kind of mentioned that maybe we won't want to do another Alabama pick of any kind per history and whatnot. But Jameson torched the UGA Bulldogs. He destroyed them, and we couldn't stop him.
And that
might be the person you would want on your team when you know you're up against the best defense of all doggone time almost.
Boy, I'm just going to go there. That might be the best defense of all time. And, I mean, we're seeing the guys get drafted to prove it.
And you didn't want to get him as a wide receiver, Yes, and I know that kind of be hypocritical with Chris. You said you didn't want to get anybody with a injury history and everything like that. But again, this guy was really good though, like really, 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 really good. Like,
in the SEC too, which to me matters.
And he does everything you need. He'll get you the separation and he'll get you breakaway speed too. So if you get him that slant every now and again, or heck, wide open, over the top, either or. But again, though, that means you got to have protection. It goes hand in hand for those type of plays at least. So again, all these things will just, we want to see how it plays out, but we just want to see the best team fielded each year. And we want to see the best moves. We want to see the best decisions. And that just hasn't been happening for the Falcons over a period of time. And that's what's been disappointing. We just want to see the team compete. I've said this about the Hawks. I don't care if the Hawks go 0-82 each season. If they're playing to their playing to their best of their abilities and playing with full effort for 48 minutes and they still get beat doing that, then the other team was just better, and I got to accept that. But what I don't want to accept is you're not really trying that hard, and it's obvious. You're just out there going through the motions, and you're not even trying to improve from a year-to-year basis. So that means you're getting terrible, which means why are you out there? Because now you're just getting somebody hurt, like Matt Ryan. 646-652-4479. I'm just saying that's just how it is. John Kaminsky, what are we going to do with him? Because I think that I read his name off. Let's see if he's still on the roster.
Because I think he is.
What are we doing with him? Because this is his third year, isn't it?
Well, it is.
But
that's why guys like him are the reason why I like to spend early picks on guys that can go after the quarterback, because it just seems like time and time again when you wait till the later rounds, they just don't pan out. Tyler Starr, Cliff Matthews, Prince Shimbo. I mean, the names are just a list of just long of guys that have been taken in the 4th, 5th, and 6th round, and rounds like that just didn't never really do anything at the NFL level. And I mean, yeah, you can find sleepers in the later rounds, but it's a lot harder at pass rush position. It's harder at offensive tackle. You may be able to find guards. We sure didn't last year, but you may be able to find guards at the offensive tackle position. It's a lot harder as opposed to like wide receiver, like Jerome mentioned, as well as running back, where you can find a lot of guys late round. But as far as who's gonna get all those guys the ball, man, we'll see. I don't know if you can hear that or not. That was the Holland boys telling us about a quarterback there.
Oh my goodness!
Looking forward to seeing them in Mercedes-Benz next.
Oh wow, that's too much.
But nah, I don't know. I think they're doing the right thing with not taking a quarterback yet, because we just need to fill those other positions. And I just want whoever the next quarterback is not to get killed, whatever he is, put in there. And so until we show up the offensive line, I would feel comfortable putting a rookie franchise type quarterback in there. If I'm gonna put a young quarterback in there now, it's gonna be Felipe Franks or somebody who I haven't invested a lot into. Because otherwise, like I said, I've just seen quarterbacks run in the past where they take so many sacks over the first couple of years that they begin to see ghosts. It's like somebody's coming, and really nobody's coming, but they play that way. And so,
well, remember RG3. He had that one season, and then after that, and you see, the current situation over in Baltimore. You got to be on the field at a certain point, and if you making choices where you're not going to protect your guy, and he's keep getting hit or injured because of one thing or another, that doesn't do you no good. the Baltimore Ravens probably should have done some stuff last year, but they couldn't because their main guy was not there. And eventually that catches up to you over a period of time. Longevity goes a long way in the NFL. And now how the rules are, quarterbacks can play longer than they've ever been able to play before, right? But that's only because they got a team around them to say, you're not going to get hit, sir. That's our job, not to let you get hit. You're not going to be on the ground, no matter what. And they take pride in that.
And if you try any funny business after the whistle or whatever, we will fight you about our quarterback.
We don't care about no fines. We don't care about no stinking fines. Fine me, So that's an attitude that we really haven't had or have prevalent on our teams the last few years, and it's obvious. You know what I'm saying? So again, that's the thing that kind of worries me a little bit is where is the essence of. Again, we've been saying it for the last couple of days, building from the trenches, building from within, strengthening that line on both sides of the ball. Because if you can do that, you're competing now. That's what Kansas City Chiefs have done for a long time. They were a good team before. His name just what's his name? Mahomes got there. The Pittsburgh Steelers obviously been good for a long time.
And George Pickens was just drafted, speaking of Pittsburgh Steelers, by the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 20 in the second round, pick 52. So George Pickens did come up.
They got Pickett and Pickens. So that's going to be a nice little T-shirt eventually, right? That's pretty cool. So congratulations, another UGA Bulldog. I gotta play it. Let's make it happen. I ain't gonna change over now. So again, the whole UGA Bulldog team's getting drafted, y'all. You might as well get used to it. Don't be a hater. Just participate. Be happy for this team. It's going to be interesting how the UGA Bulldogs do this year, but I'm pretty sure they're going to still be high up there. So we'll see what happens. 646-652-4479. I can't believe I forgot the number earlier tonight. We're almost there. Pick 53. Colts are on actually 54. The Super Bowl champion Indianapolis Colts are on the clock. So we'll see what they end up doing to help that team who's already loaded right now. Like that team's definitely in contention phase now. By default of just getting Matt there. He's by far a lot better than Carson Wentz, and nobody can contest that, right? And they have weapons all across the board. They got the offensive line. They got the running game, which is superb. They got a defense. They got wide receivers galore. They just picked up another wide receiver, Alec Pierce from Cincinnati. So Matt has all kind of people to throw to. So they're definitely, going to be doing some things there. So we're almost to that pick to see if Dean maybe shows up on the Atlanta roster somehow.
It's amazing to me that this man is still on the board. Like,
ain't it crazy?
Sometimes height doesn't matter. Sometimes 40 times shouldn't matter. When a guy is just a good football player, he's just a good football player. But whoever gets this man is going to get somebody with a chip on their shoulder. He's going to come in ready to prove that he should have been the first linebacker taken. And, I wouldn't want to be the opponents playing against Nakobe Dean. Maybe he'll last to our pick and we'll take him. We'll see.
Well, there's always that part of, the combine and these numbers and things of that nature. And they've done it for such a long time in regards to the equation of if this, and this is how this player is going to be. And they're using that per histories and things of that nature. But like you said, sometimes a half an inch, like they're showing Alex Pierce and Jordy Nelson back to back, 6'3" and 1/8, and Jordy was 6'2" and 5/8. Jordy is 217 pounds, Alex Pierce is 211 pounds. 40 times, Alex Pierce is 4.41, Jordy Nelson 4.51. Is it that much difference? You know what I'm saying? To say Alex Pierce is going to have a 12-year career or not? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. That's where it's always kind of like mystery meat a little bit. And at the end of the day, you got to let this guy play and find out. But I think Dean passed the eye test. You know what I'm saying? Beyond that, you know what I'm saying? Because he was always where he was supposed to be, and he knows where everybody else is supposed to be too. And that right there, that's a gift. You know,
Yeah, that kid is a smart kid, man. And when I say smart, he's not just football smart. Academically, he's smart as well. So, you know, and when you're talking about a guy who potentially be the captain of a defense, the guy that can have the green sticker on his helmet, in which the defensive coordinator is talking through in the mic, you want a guy that's very intelligent in that position, a guy that's able to process things quickly and react to it, and that's what Nakobe Dean does. So,
yeah.
you know, no matter how far he slips in this draft, my thoughts have not shaken. This guy is going to be a very good football player. And so whoever picks him is going to have a good guy. Hopefully it's Atlanta here and 5 more picks.
5 more picks. He's going to be a great team player too, because he'd be also able to help people be accountable, because he ain't trying to be with that mess. So, okay, well, you know I missed that tackle or whatever. I didn't do that block or whatever. No, not with him on the field. You see what I'm saying? That's something else that we need on this team. Really, we do. You know, because when you have a good player or a great player and he wants everybody else to be great, you do have a choice. You either going to step up or you might need to step out. You know what I'm saying? Because it's going to be very apparent when you're in practice. And then because if nothing changes, that means all the coaches that are watching it, they're complicit. Because he's going to call people out. He's going to be like, man, how come you didn't run from sideline to sideline like the rest of us are? Why are you doing this, sir? You know, he's going to be polite, I'm sure. But at a certain point, it's like he's outplaying everybody else. Why are you here? And at a certain point, it's like, well, why is he here? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, again, that's why we have some players that really, at the end of the day, probably should never have been on our roster, but they were just by default type of a deal. And we know we have a lot of players over the, you know, from the last regime that are kind of trying to phase all of them out or whatnot. But it's a matter of why were they here in the first place, though? Like Jerome mentioned earlier, you know, doing your due diligence and doing your study. You know, again, the teams that do have the best talent also do tend to have the best scouts too, right? You know, they're making some real key decisions over years of time. That does play out. Again, it's like, how do you find this person in the 6th round? Digging.
With the exception of the Rams, which they still got good scouts too, but their GM, Les Snead, former Falcons assistant GM, he just trades all the picks away and goes and gets Pro Bowl titles and win the Super Bowl. So.
And again, that's the other aspect of being able to do that. But you have to know when to pull those triggers and things of that nature. And we just, again, the 5 things you need to be successful as a franchise, no matter what the sport. You got to have an owner that wants to win and allows the winning to happen, knows when to delegate, right? And spend the money, of course, obviously. 2, you got to have a general manager that makes wise decisions over a long period of time. It can't just be one and done. That one high draft pick that you did get doesn't circumvent all the other crap that you might have did, right? Number 3, you have to have a good to great coach. You got to have they have to be good or great. They can't be below that, really, to be successful over a long period of time. You have to have good to great players. You have to have good to great players, and then you also have to have health. And over the last 10, 15 years, think about how many of those things the Falcons haven't had, right? And that's why we're where we at. And that's why Matt Ryan ain't here no more. Just think about all those things. So now it's a matter of, okay, if you're going to reboot, let's do it properly. And again, all these other teams, they have these great offensive lines. Think about the young man, I call him young man, who just retired from the Rams and how long he played, but he played at an exceptional level, right? I can't remember the offensive lineman's name, big old dude, right? Was man of the year.
Andrew Whitworth.
Yeah. Why can't we do that? You know, a few times, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not expecting nobody to be playing for 15 years, but why not a good solid 10 at an exceptional level? You know what I'm saying? And mean about it too. I'm going to put you on the ground. Boom, there you are. Where are you going, sir? You know, so we need that. And because the one time that you did have a line that played the whole season together and had a mean spirit and all that kind of stuff, somebody won an MVP. We were in the Super Bowl and we were a few plays away from winning a Super Bowl. The Falcons should be in 3 Super Bowls at least. And we only made the one and then only made the playoffs one more time after that. And then we've seen what the debacle has been. And it ain't cool because all those things were preventable at the end of the day, you know. But again, coaching came into play. sometimes coordinators just is not the best. It's just not. It doesn't work out, especially if they can't adjust. They don't learn. They don't try to get better. You know, again, cliches are a good thing up to a point.
And the fact of the matter is, just because a guy is good at maybe X's and O's doesn't make him a leader of men. And sometimes I think that's what's missing when you talk about guys making the transition from a coordinator to actually being the CEO of the program, because that's basically what the head coach is as far as the on-field part of it.
Yep. 646-652-4479. We'll be wrapping up the show in a bit. I'm trying to stay on to see.
We're 3 picks away. Sky Moore, the wide receiver out of Western Michigan, went to the Kansas City Chiefs at pick 54. Got Trey McBride, the tight end out of Colorado State, went to the Cardinals at 55. So we just got the Cowboys and the Bills in front of us. So I don't know. We're cutting close on the time. I don't know if we're gonna make it, but it's close.
We're gonna see how much TV time they put out there over the next couple of minutes and see what happens. So because I want to try to stay on the air as long as I can. We'll see what happens. If anything, I'll try to do a quick ending and we'll do a little overtime show. We hadn't done that in a long time actually, so I'll try to time that out. But again, we just want the best. Again, around the ATL, we talk on the bias side up to a point because we are Atlanta sports fans, but at the same time, we're realistic too, and we want to see the teams be successful no matter what the sport. And with the Falcons, again, I'll say it like this: you see this placard in back of me. This has a date of 1980 on it. Okay, that's a long time ago, right? So when you're talking about being a fan of a team for a long period of time, again, you want to keep rooting for that team because it's going to be that one year they win it all, just like with the Braves in '95, right? And then you get to see them win it for a second time. And there's, you know, you had a new franchise like Atlanta United, and they won a cup. You know, will they ever win another one? I don't know. But I'm going to be there when they do. The Falcons eventually are going to win a Super Bowl. Wish it had been with Matt, but it ain't going to happen. You know, maybe we'll give them a ring on the side. I don't know. I don't know. You can't do that. Really. I just want to see the team be successful, but I want to see them play at a hilt that competes with all the other teams.
I was so happy to see the Dogs win, man, because I'll be honest with you, I was 3 years old in 1980. I do not remember their championship. You know, I was watching sports at a real young age, but I think I probably was still watching Mr. Wrestling #2 and those guys at the age of 3. So see those guys, man, and just to see the joy on the face of all the Bulldog fans. And I thought Mr. Jurenovich brought up a great point, too, when it comes to the NFL team, that it really can affect the mood of the city. Because those days leading up to that Super Bowl, that last Super Bowl, man, everybody was so happy. I was riding a MARTA from time to time during that time. There was trash talk going back and forth. I remember myself had a whole trash talking match going on with somebody in full Patriots gear.
Hold up real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So usually in the second round, the commissioner doesn't do any of the picks. How come he out here for the Dallas Cowboys pick? What's up with that? What's going on, man? Anyway, continue with your thought. I just noticed him walk out there. I was like, maybe they're doing a replay of yesterday all of a sudden. I'm like, what's going on? But anyway.
But I remember that was a Patriots fan that had full gear on the MARTA, and myself and a couple other Falcons fans trash talking, the banter, and the mood was excitement and upbeat. The day after that Super Bowl, sir, you didn't hardly see any more jerseys and hats on like you did leading all up to it. And pretty much everybody on public transportation and MARTA stations and stuff, nobody was talking to each other. Everybody just had their head down, going, to wherever they had to go. And like I said, Mr. Jurenovich made a good point. It really does affect the mood of the entire city. Yeah. When, there's a big thing going on with your NFL team. So definitely want to see this team get back on the right track, man, because it makes everybody, it makes it a happier place. It makes people less irritable. You probably see, less crime even during those times. Yeah. So,
paying attention. They're in the spotlight, so to speak.
All right, Dallas Cowboys just took a guy, Sam Williams. I know him, offensive outside linebacker out of Ole Miss, edge rusher type guy. So we just got one more pick to go before the Falcons.
So what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do, Jordan. I'm going to do a quick ending of the regular show. We're going to do a little overtime. I want to say thank you to everybody. We're going to come right back. Again, thank you to Jerome Jurenovich for coming on to the show. That was such a great time for us to have one of the greats in Atlanta sports broadcasting on the show. And we'll never forget that particular interview for sure. Leading off 2022 the right way, even though we're starting a little late, but whatever. We did it and knocked it out. We're going to be right back, folks. Don't go anywhere. This is Around the ATL on IMTN Worldwide Radio. Make sure you follow on Instagram and the YouTube channel. Please subscribe. That helps us out so much over the next couple of weeks and months and years to come. In the meantime, we're going to take a quick little break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about the newest Atlanta Falcon at pick 58 by the time we come back. Don't go anywhere and enjoy. All right, we are back. This is Chris on IMTN Worldwide Radio, and this is Around the ATL. It is April 29th, 2022, and again, this is our last hour of the show, where the front of it was our great interview with Mr. Jerome Jorinovic, 40 years in sports broadcasting, the last 15 years with Atlanta Live and Braves Live. You remember watching him every game. Sometimes multiple times a day, broadcasting, talking about our Atlanta sports teams. And he has some great advice and great stories, just real eloquent. But he's enjoying his retirement. He's not coming back. Sorry, Bobby D. but he's definitely appreciating his time off. And he definitely said he'll come back on the show again. So like I said, we're going to see if we can get him to bring a whole bunch of other people on with him too. What's up, Trey? But anyway, 646-652-4479 is the number. You missed that one, Jordan. You missed that one. Anyway.
I'm sorry, sir. I'm still monitoring because right now the Atlanta Falcons are officially on the clock as we speak. Luke Kolke of Central Michigan, the offensive tackle, was just taken by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So you have the Atlanta Falcons on the clock. Now, just like last year in the second round, you have a premium Georgia Bulldog right there for the taking. Last year it was Azeez Ojulari, who ended up having 8.5 sacks as a rookie for the New York Giants. And I don't know, I guess we couldn't use 8.5 sacks for whatever reason or another. So let's see if we can use a captain in the middle of the defense. Now, if they don't
Jordan, real quick to interrupt, you have a little bit of distortion there. So I want to make sure you know that because it's a little.
Might be because I had the little AC going on. Maybe that's
all right. There you go. That's a lot better.
Okay. And so yeah, so you this year you're Kobe Dean, and so let's see if we can use a top tackler, great blitzer. I mean, Dean Pease does love to blitz. You know what I mean? In the middle of this defense. If not, I hope it's an offensive lineman that's going to be a good player. If it's not one of those two things or another pass rusher, then I will be slightly disappointed, slightly to greatly disappointed in this pick, depending on who we pick. So looks like the pick is in. We should get the name here shortly.
Well, as we wait for you to make that announcement, I'll let you do it because my programming has changed and I don't have time to go and change it myself. The Memphis game is going to be coming on soon. So they switched over to the other ESPN. So
also want to mention Malik Willis is actually still on the clock as well. So it's still on the board as well, the quarterback.
I bet he's disappointed, but I'm hoping that his agent, kind of prepped him good enough where that could be a possible. Oh no, please. Do we just need to end the show? I think we need to end the show.
The pick is in. It is Troy Anderson, inside linebacker out of Montana State. Okay, so they just took somebody at Nakobe Dean's position that's not Nakobe Dean. Inside linebacker Troy Anderson out of Montana State, 6'4", 243 pounds. The sideline run defender with outstanding speed who chases with good effort. He has initial quickness to shoot gaps and disrupt plays in the backfield. Has the frame and speed to compete with tight ends in coverage. He is a good upside as a pass rusher in the closing speed despite on quarterbacks. He played quarterback, running back, and linebacker at Montana State. There again, don't want to, say anything bad about the young man. He may end up being a very good player, but I just can't imagine that a player that plays the same position as Nakobe Dean is going to be a better football player than Nakobe Dean, sir. Your thoughts?
Just real quick, your distortion came back again. We heard everything you said, but it is distorted, just to give you a heads up. I don't know what we're doing anymore now. I mean, I want to see how they come out with their trying to make this argument that they didn't need to get Dean. I want to hear exactly how they situated themselves to say Dean wasn't the better player. I just have to hear the explanation because I know it's not going to make any sense. It won't in this case. It can't. And then he's probably going to get picked next in the draft, inevitably, right? Why? Because probably everybody else who hasn't picked him yet said, "Well, shoot, I thought the Falcons are in Georgia still, right?" I don't know what to say. I'm flabbergasted in this case. I don't know what to say. I'm at a loss for words.
The NFL draft prospect rankings or whatever, it has the guy that we took, Mr. Troy Anderson, rated as the 9th best inside linebacker. They had Nakobe Dean graded as the best. In fact, Channing Tindall another Georgia Bulldog who's still on the board that plays that interior linebacker spot, was rated higher than Troy Anderson as well. So, I mean, like I said, we got to wait and see. There's no way I'm going to come over here and just straight up trash a kid and say that he's not going to be good when I don't have extensive knowledge on Montana State football. But like I said, I just can't imagine taking a guy at Dean's position over Dean. Like I said, it'd be different if they would have went to an offensive tackle. You know, it would have been different if they would have went to another pass rusher in Drake Jackson or someone like that. But to take an interior linebacker and not be Jacoby Dean, I mean, I have to be honest with you, sir. I'm extremely disappointed.
I'm past disappointed. I'm angry. I'm just going to come out and say it. In this case, this makes no sense. And again, you're talking about a team that had a legendary defense, and they all are getting drafted. And the one guy that still hadn't gotten drafted, that was one of your best players on that team, you almost basically on purpose did it. And everybody else is looking at this and is like, why do y'all hate UGA so much? Because this ain't the first time, obviously. And it's not just the principle of, oh, well, you want to just draft a player from UGA for the sake of drafting the player. No, these guys are good. Look at all the UGA players in the NFL that have helped their teams over decades. And we can't draft one. In this case, you had the draft of drafts to where you couldn't mess up by getting any of them. And we can't even draft one because at this point, who else are you going to draft now? Like now, if you draft one, is this going to be because, oh, well, you just want – but is there even anybody left? I don't know off the top of my head. I don't have that information.
Jamari, like I said,
say again?
Channing Crowder, you got Jamari Sawyer. You got both of the running backs, Zamir White and James Cook. You got the punter. So there are still a few Georgia players that are worth drafting. But I don't know. You know, maybe somebody can come and convince on Twitter.
I don't think we're going to – look, but see, here's the deal. We've had all these players come through with 3 picks so far, and this is the one you had. You had it right there in your hands. I don't think we're going to get Cook. I don't think we're going to get Zeus. I don't think we're going to get that offensive lineman. We're not going to get any of these guys. We're going to get the exact opposite, and we're going to be the ones looking like mud on the faces. And just like the young man that you were mentioning that you had to bleep out what you were saying, it's like somebody's running ops on us right now. That's what it really does look like. Why are we sabotaging ourselves right now? This was a position that was going to fill an immense gap, period. And we didn't do it still. You know, Jordan B out indefinitely, right orbital fracture and mild concussion.
Yep. I just saw that too. I was just going to mention that as well. Yeah. And I don't really like that just for the simple fact that is the next opponent for the Miami Heat. And so, you know, I really want to see these guys get challenged. You know, I don't like either team. I really don't care who wins. But I just wanted to see what was going to happen when they had to defend more than one guy. You know, they couldn't just focus on one guy on defense. But look like now they're going to be geared up on James Harden and Maxey because I don't know when Embiid is going to play in this series. So that's kind of crazy.
I'm not saying Philly will get swept, but I don't know. 646-652-4479 as we get ready to wrap up things.
And basically what it is it's like the old Scooby-Doo thing where you got somebody with a mask on, but in this case it's Terry Fontenot, and then you have Fred from Scooby-Doo taking his mask off, and it's actually Thomas Dimitrov. I posted it twice already. I'm about to post it again, sir, just to let you know, because Montana State, now tell me that don't sound like somewhere to come.
You know, again, just think on being level-headed about it. The competition that Dean has played and established himself as a top linebacker and one of the best linebackers in the draft, even though he's fallen, but that's just whatever you want to call it, but he's still the best rated that's still available, and you pick somebody who's the 9th best from a school that, let's just be honest about it, wasn't facing the competition that the UGA Bulldogs have been. That's not contestable. So how do you legitimize saying, okay, like how are you going to say, oh, well, it'd be a reach to pick Dean in the draft? it'd be a reach because that's what they're saying. And this other guy is a sure thing. That's what they're saying. And I just don't know how you can make that argument. And it's really upsetting to me right now. And it's not just because you want to see a UGA guy get picked and drafted by the home team. This was one of the better players. And he's smart. He knows what he's doing. He knows what to do and when to do it. Like, he has all those intangibles to be the next great linebacker in the NFL in history, and we're going to let him go to whoever. That just don't sit well. That just don't. And again, look what's going to happen when it gets to December, and basically, I don't know. It's just it's disappointing. That's all I can say. It's just really disappointing. In this case, Drake London was one thing, but this is totally different. This is totally different. So I don't know. Maybe we'll trade and get him anyway. I just don't know what the point is now. So anyway, guys, as we get ready to wrap up the show officially, we did a little overtime there. But again, thanks to all who listened to the Jerome Jurenovich interview. If you missed it, go back and listen to it, watch it. It was a great interview. Jerome Jurenovich, again, being 40 years in the broadcast game, 15 years on Atlanta, the Hawks Live and Braves Live broadcast, telling us what's going to be happening or what to expect every night was really a treat. And sometimes you take stuff like that for granted when you see other broadcasts of other teams and stuff like that. Jerome was a consummate professional, and he did such a wonderful job just telling those stories as well, kind of giving us how he came up in the game and things of that nature, and just how to look at things and the advice that he gave too. If you are thinking about getting into the industry, the type of advice that he gave in regards to not forgetting how to do certain things and why. So definitely, take a listen if you get a chance. And again, if you've missed around the ATL in the past, definitely catch up. You can listen on Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and of course, Blog Talk Radio. And of course, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, IMTN Worldwide Radio, you always get to listen to past episodes as well. They're all going to be there. But definitely, sink your teeth into some sports because, again, we've had other people we've had interviews of, included Dominique Wilkins, John Collins, Bob Rathman, Steve Holman, Nikki Collins, Angel McCautry. I mean, we have a list of some great people, and it's going to continue. By the way, and I almost forgot. I'm glad I thought about this. We're about to end the show, but I wanted to do this. Next Thursday evening at 7 p.m., our next guest is actually also of Atlanta and also in the industry, more on the reporting side. Tanitra Batiste will be on the show. She has been doing her thing for a long time, and we're going to get to hear her talk about sports on the end of getting to meet a lot of these athletes and getting to know who they are and why they do what they do and things of that nature. So look forward to her being on the show. Again, we like to have equal representation on our show. A few years ago, we had Jamila J on the show.
Yes.
Great sports journalist in Atlanta. She's always at WNBA, the Atlanta Dream, and of course the Hawks basketball games and giving us the scoop on things that are happening in real time. So definitely excited for Tanitra to be on the show next week. I'll be posting that probably later on tonight officially. So be looking forward to that. That being said, go ahead, Joy. You got something?
Graham Coffey, Dog Out West on Twitter, says that he's been told by people he trusts that there's rumors going around NFL war rooms that Nakobe Dean has a torn pectoral muscle. No idea if it's true. Hated for Dean. There's a long history of teams starting rumors in hopes a player falls to them. He did have labrum surgery back in January of 2021. But my question to that is, torn pecs don't heal? I'm pretty sure that's not a career-ending injury. I mean, last I checked.
Didn't the linebacker that got hurt at the combine get drafted ahead of Dean? And that was recent. That just literally kind of happened. My head's hurting.
Just passing along the information, sir. But like I said, my question to that is, torn pecs heal. I mean, you're not drafting necessarily a guy to be able to just because he can come in and play right now. You want to draft the best football player long term, right? I mean, And who knows if it's even true, but
just for the fact that it's out there, and again, I don't know if since we've been talking the last few minutes, if he still hasn't been drafted yet. But if all of a sudden he's in the 3rd round, then maybe it could be true at that point. Because like, why else hasn't he been drafted at that point, right? This is the best line. This is one of the best linebackers out there, right? So we're getting to the nitty gritty going into this. What is it, 9 o'clock? I don't know when the 2nd round ends, but goodness, like. I don't know. That still doesn't even make sense because why wouldn't you want to throw a flyer out there and just find out what you got? Because he is the talent that he is. But I don't know. That doesn't make any sense for me. So everybody, I'm so excited again. It's been a while since we've been on the air regularly. This was our 3rd show this week, actually. So is this one of those deals where you're just trying to kind of get back into a regular segment of things? This was our first interview of 2022. Jerome, again, was really excited about that. That was pretty hyped to hear him say that. That goes. And, again, we had our draft show earlier in the week, and we had our first show, I think that was Tuesday of the week, talking sports. So, again, if you love Atlanta sports and you love all the teams in Atlanta, college and pro, definitely listen to Around the ATL. Again, follow us on Twitter, IMTM Radio on Twitter, Intellect ATL, and Jordan 23 ATL as well. That's correct, right?
Yes.
And of course on Instagram, IMTM Worldwide Radio. But subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's easy. IMTM Worldwide Radio on YouTube. You get all the shows as far as that goes.
UGA Pat says, actually, I wouldn't mind if the Falcons moved to somewhere like St. Louis.
I mean, I'm 50% there. Like I said the other night on Twitter, man, the color blue is kind of looking better right now. I don't know. I might have to, I don't know. I might have to start thinking. I got to think about some life choices here because right now, again, if we're just talking about, let's just level it. Yes, wide receiver was a need. But was it a bigger need than our defense when you had all these receivers that were going to be available anyway? So right now, when you just look at it, we've only really filled one position truly, and that was at defensive end. I believe that guy could be good, okay, just on that end. But we could have had so many others, you know what I'm saying? And so I don't know. I'm not comfortable right now. And depending on what we do, the 3rd round, I mean, think about it. We got, 2 6th-round picks? We're not going to be getting anybody who can immediately help us at that point, whether or not we even keep those picks. I think we have a 4th-round pick, right? So like you said, who would we get in the 4th round that would be spectacularly helping us as a need on the defensive or the offensive end, mostly on the line? Like, we haven't picked the offensive lineman yet. Right? So
yeah, that's where I was gonna go. We're already to round 3, unless we trade back up into this round somehow. And here we go. We've yet to address the offensive line. Now, granted, maybe this class may be a little bit deeper than last year's class, or maybe we could take somebody that's more ready. But just looking at what the 3rd round pick, Jalen Mayfield did started for us last year, and yet you're gonna wait till 3rd round again to address offensive line. And see, that's why I wouldn't have touched receiver as early as we did. And I certainly would not have even taken an inside linebacker outside of Nakobe Dean at that position. Now, granted, we need more help there because we lost Fourier, but you only got 2 guys started that position. One of them is going to be Debo as long as he's here. And the other one, we have got Mikael Walker, who's been getting snaps his first couple of years in the league, who I believe is ready to step in and start. I was fine with making an exception on that if you take Nakobe Dean, but I don't see the reason of taking this guy unless this guy can actually play some edge too. But I just don't see it, sir. I don't understand.
I technically don't want to see the presser on this, but I kind of almost have to because I just want to see how wild and crazy explanations they're going to have to say this player was so much better than Dean. Or they're going to try to split hairs somehow. I'm like, by every measurable, Dean is better than this particular player. I'm sorry. I don't want to insult anybody.
Except for height and weight.
He just is. So, again, it's just like, I don't know. Again, this
Let
is
me try to pull up.
this is a
Let me
need.
try to pull up some stats before we go.
Say it again.
I said before we get all the way out the air, I do want to try to pull up the stats for the guy we drafted, Mr. Anderson, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I want to try to pull up some numbers on him before we go all the way out the air, just to see, how he compared. What did we say? Dean was 6.5 sacks, or was it 8.5 sacks last year? Let me see. Oh man, I tell you what, man, being a Falcons fan is just it's not for the faint of heart, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't have a strong personality, if you don't have the ability to deal with a lot of adversity, I recommend you don't choose this life as far as being a Falcons fan, because
this is because at the end of the day, you just want to see the team be successful. Again, they're not going to win every game, but you want them to be trying to win every game and have the capability to win a game. And when you don't ever get to that point, then it gets really hard, because it's like, well, why are these other teams getting to compete and we can't? And then it's a matter of, okay, well, who's making the decisions and how are those decisions translating out over time, and how much time do you give, and some teams just do a really good job and some teams don't. Again, that's why the Patriots have all those Super Bowls. They've done a great job over decades, right? And the Falcons haven't, just to be frank. And right now, again, this was a draft that they really needed to hit. We weren't able to do that much in free agency, although we did kind of plug a little hole here, a little hole there, and we'll see what coaching and see if those players really take it upon themselves to say, okay, we're going to really be good. But this draft was loaded, and we can't really afford any misses. We really can't, and that's why the other day, Jordan said, he has to be the best receiver, Mr. London, and now.
got to be.
This young man at inside linebacker, he's going to have to be the best. He got to be better than Duke Riley. Let me stop. But anyway,
that shouldn't be very hard, but still. So from what I'm pulling up here, because Montana State doesn't have stats on the normal site where most of the college football stats are on, because they're in such a small.
Is this even a real school, Jordan? Come on now. This is
what I'm saying is 83 tackles. Actually 83 solo tackles. What I'm seeing here, though, is 14 tackles for a loss and 2 sacks. So I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to offer a lot pass rushing wise. And you had Nakobe Dean that had 10.5 tackles for a loss and 6 sacks, but that's playing in the SEC. You know what I mean? Against some of the best linemen and best coaches and everything else college football has to offer. So, yeah, man. I mean, like I say,
here's the other thing. They can't say, oh, well, being in the SEC don't mean nothing. That we already know that's just a ludicrous statement if they try to claim that. You see what I'm saying? We just beat the Alabama Crimson doggone Tide, didn't we? Who's always in the national championship game somehow every year, beating everybody, right? So, and we've been in the championship game a couple of times in the last few years, right? And beating all these other teams in front of us as well. So again, they can't say, oh, well, the level of competition don't mean nothing all of a sudden. They can't in this case, because you had Dean just win a national championship. That means something. You see what I'm saying? It's just, I don't know. This wasn't one that we can miss on, and we missed anyway. And at this point, I don't know. We might be able to get a running back. James Cook or Zeus possibly. I would probably tend to go towards James Cook a little bit. I don't know, but
I don't think they're gonna take any of them, to be honest.
I don't think so. That's what I'm saying. This right here, it's almost spitting in the face to say we don't care that the Bulldogs are in Georgia and they just won a national championship.
I think it's more than that. We know that they won a championship, and we know the fans want us to take them, so we're not gonna take them. I'm leaning towards what my guy just read his tweet earlier. This guy's an op, man. You don't hire, would the Hatfields hire McCoy? You know what I mean? With the capitalists hire Montague.
Sometimes it's just smart to go with the smart. play. You know what I'm saying? Don't you might say that you're falling into the fandom and things of that nature, but sometimes the fans are a little bit right, because all these other Georgia players are going to do some big things with the teams that drafted them, but just not with us. And we're going to be we're going to be the ones with eggs on our face, and they're going to have to come up with some kind of explanation. But see, the thing of it is that their regime might not be as long as they thought because of this kind of stuff. You know, because now it's like, well, what else are you not going to do right? I want to hear what Dean Pease has to say. I want to know if he backed up this draft pick. That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from him as well.
What I need to hear at this point, because we actually had the opportunity to put this smart young man into a Dean Pease system. Remember, Dean Pease said he couldn't put his whole system together because we couldn't touch the quarterback. So he had to peel back what he wanted to really do. You're talking about being able to insert this young man into his defense, along with a good defensive end from Penn State. You know what I'm saying? And then sprinkle in a little bit more. You have AJ, you got Casey. We might have some semblance there, but now we're having to rely on this person who didn't play in the SEC, is nowhere near as good as Dean, and having to say we're going to plug and play him. If this guy is not on the starting lineup somehow or another, and then not even getting any snaps. If John Kaminsky is getting more snaps than this young man, this is not good, you know. And that's all I'm looking at right now. I'm just looking at it just from that standpoint. So I don't know.
And then just for reference, I mentioned, you know, if you're going to double down on anything, you double down on edge rusher. And lo and behold, you know, 3 picks after we picked, the guy I mentioned out of USC, Drake Jackson, is taken by the 49ers, in which the 49ers already have a good defense. They've got good pass rushers, but yet they still continue to load up on the edge rushers because they get it. They understand how important that position is, and you know the Falcons just don't seem to get it. You know,
there's a chance we might draft another wide receiver, man. I just have such a bad feeling right now.
Yeah, like I said, we can take a running back, but it probably won't be either of the Georgia guys. You know what I mean? We just passed on 2 Georgia linebackers that's still out there. We'll probably take another linebacker, but it probably won't be Jabari Sawyer at this point, man. Like I said, you know, they hate the Bulldogs. I mean, I think it's fair to say it. The Falcons hate Georgia Bulldog players. I think it's a fair thing to say by now. Because now we're looking at three different regimes that seem to be intentionally ignoring Georgia football players, man. And I don't understand it.
And they can't ever give you a good explanation when these players become, you know, Pro Bowlers, and some of them eventually Super Bowl champions. And it's like, oh, well, we just missed on it. But you didn't have to. You could have picked them. You had to pick, and they fell there, and you still didn't do it. You see what I'm saying? It's different if you didn't have to pick.
James Cook just came off the board, number 63 to the Buffalo Bills, so he won't be a Falcon. Taken in the 2nd round. I know another edge guy a lot of people like for the Falcons was Nick Bonito out of Oklahoma. He just went to end the 2nd round to the Denver Broncos at pick number 64. So we're looking at now, we have Zeus White, we have Jamari Sawyer, we have Crowder, the linebacker, not Crowder, Tyndall, the linebacker, because Tay Crowder is already in the NFL. In fact, Tay Crowder was Mr. Relevant last year and played great as a rookie for the Giants, as well as another Georgia player we passed on about 15 times. But yeah, so we only have Sawyer, Zeus White, Tyndall, and the punter left that I know of.
We'll get the punter. We'll get the punter. Watch. We will get the punter. Watch it happen. Watch it happen, I swear. Guys, we're gonna sign off for tonight. Again, hopefully everybody enjoyed the show. Definitely, if you did not get a chance to listen to Jerome Jurenovich, I urge you to go back and listen to that first part of the show. That was the 7 o'clock hour. And hopefully everybody enjoyed our talk in regards to the 2nd round thus far. We tried to stay on as long as we could to try to see if we were going to get a UGA guy, and it didn't happen. It was just terrible. I'm like, why did we stay on longer? We didn't need the pain to do this live on television. But anyway, we did. We do everything for the fans of Atlanta. So we'll see what happens and see how this translates and see if we can still fill in some holes. Again, tomorrow's a whole nother day. We'll find out. But again, please make sure you do subscribe to the YouTube channel, IMTN Worldwide Radio on YouTube, Instagram as well. Make sure you follow both of us on Twitter, Intellect ATL and Jordan 23 ATL. Jordan, any other final words before we get out of here, man?
Just want to thank everybody, for listening, and one special thanks to Jerome Jurenovich. An outstanding interview, great stories, great insight, as he always provided, on television. Just so happy he can provide it for around the ATL and our listeners today. And last but not least, as always, I want to thank God for giving me this breath that I breathe to talk about these Atlanta and these Georgia sports that I love.
Thanks again, Jerome. We'll have you on the show real soon, man. And enjoy your retirement as well. Everybody, y'all take care. The Atlanta Falcons, I tell you. Anyway, y'all take care. Bye.